Hi, my
There you
name is
go.
Roy Canterbury. I'm going to be a host today on Archery Talk 101. This is podcast number 234. So you can always look for that number when you're looking for it. Just before we get started, I want to let everybody know where you can listen to and watch the podcast. You can listen to it on Spotify and wherever you get your podcast, as well as you can go out to audible.com and you can listen to it there free as well. And you can watch the podcast on my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. I have all kinds of stuff out there on that channel. And then probably the best thing to do is join the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group because there not only you get to um, watch the podcast, but there's a lot of archers out there that have all kinds of experience from, bow techs to instructors. And we've got archers there that are just new to those that have been shooting for 60 years or sometimes even more. Um, yeah, I've been an archery instructor since 95 and I started shooting in the 60s when there was no compounds. So that we've been all around the whole thing here, but let's get into the point of the podcast. Let's talk to Russell and see what he's got going on. So how about if you introduce yourself and tell our audience a little something about yourself?
Hi, I'm Russell Ickes. I reside in Oklahoma, but currently I'm in Colorado visiting family. I'm from Colorado. I've been shooting archery for since I was 8 years old. I'm 44 now. I have been an instructor here in Colorado and working on becoming an instructor again in Oklahoma. Shot competitive archery for a number of years. Took a 15-year break in there with raising a family and stuff. And my oldest son and my youngest son both have wanted to try to get back into it. So we're getting back into competitive archery, but we always hunt archery, and I've hunted elk most of my life and mule deer. And now we're the last 4 years living in Oklahoma, been mighty whitetail hunters, and it's been challenging because they're not mule deer, they're not elk. So they present a whole new challenge. That and trying to kill some hogs while we're at it. There's a lot of we live in southwestern or southeastern Oklahoma, and there's a good hog problem down there. So
Yeah, them hogs, they can get pretty destructive. So yeah, farmers and ranchers really like to get rid of them because they tear up a lot of stuff.
oh yeah, the fields are always so rutted up, and I've had a couple feeders knocked over by them, but nothing ever real bad. And in the spot, the place I have to hunt is about 170 acres, and I'm not on a creek bottom, so I don't see a lot of the hogs. But it also means that most of the bigger deer I see are just passing through. I have a few that live on the property, but the bigger deer definitely are like they cut through. So you got to be there at the right moment. But when the rut starts, you never know what's going to show up.
Right. Yeah, they get out got one track mind during that time.
Oh yeah, it does make them easier to hunt, but it also makes the does so much more aware. And all of a sudden, things you weren't getting busted for in October, you're getting busted for real easy because they're just on high alert. Like, oh man, wasn't didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
I like it best when it goes back to kind of the tail end of the rut, and you're getting into November, first part of December, and it's cooled off, and the big deer are all kind of settled down, but the does kind of go back to, hey, we gotta keep eating, we gotta get all this food in us because winter's coming, and they kind of, for an inexperienced whitetail hunter like myself, it definitely is easier that time of year, but also got to deal with a lot of other things at that time of year as well. So Thanksgiving always gets in the way.
Yeah, it does. It's perfect time to go out and hunt and you expect to spend time with family.
Oh yeah. Well, luckily I've got a good my wife knows that this when we got married 18 years ago, I'm an archery hunter. So as much as I can be out there hunting, I'm probably going to try to do it. And she's like, "Nope, that means meat in the freezer. Go do it."
Well, that's good. Well, and lots of times though, even though, like on Thanksgiving Day, go hunt in the morning
Oh
because
yeah.
normally you're not doing anything till afternoon or evening and you can get in your hunt. I know I used to go on my wife's birthday, which is on the 5th, September 15th, or my ex-wife's anyway. And I would go hunt. I'd come back and they're just barely getting up. I got a hunt in.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Like,
why hang around all morning when you could be out hunting?
no, and that's kind of what we do. Or when I lived in Colorado, my brother-in-law and I, because I mean, Colorado's archery season is only, the month of September. So by November, we were hard into, shooting paper with our bows. But waterfowl season was upon us, and we would go out early morning for a waterfowl hunt on Thanksgiving, and usually end up with a bunch of geese. But yeah, we were at that point in time, we were hard into paper season, shooting them little dime X's, trying to do our best to make it to Vegas on a good score.
Yeah. So when you now, how do you see the difference between target and hunting and 3D shooting?
Um, I mean, obviously, like when you're hunting, it's they're not just sitting there waiting for you to shoot them. You've gotta be rehearsed enough in your shot cycle that it's got to be second nature, and it's got to speed up a little bit. But you still got to hold. You got to aim. You got to do all the things that you have to do. But like when you're shooting paper at 20 yards, you can sit there and hold that bow for 30, 40 seconds, a minute even, and let down. You, if the shot doesn't present itself on an animal and you don't, it's not a good shot, then obviously you have to do something. But you can't fling an arrow at a live animal that you don't feel is going to be a good shot and feel good about it. You can definitely punch a release at a 3D target and still end up hitting the right spot. If you're shooting ASA, you're shooting IBO, you can still nail a 10, a 12, or an 11, I guess it is an IBO now. Um, and you can do a lot of different things. But the idea of I can just eat, I can just really, my shot cycle can just be as long as I want it to be is not a real good thought process in my head. You have to practice as much for hunting as you do for target archery. And in my opinion, um, the difference is being that the more you practice target archery, I just feel like the better your shot cycle is for hunting, and the more you react, and it's just muscle memory versus really having to think about it. I've caught myself in the woods on seasons where I didn't shoot a lot of target archery, and I, picked up my bow at you know, the end of the winter maybe, or even the middle of the spring after turkey season, and I didn't have quite the same form that I would. And I've found myself really having to think about my shot cycle and everything else instead of just going, when that animal steps at this spot, I've got to stop it, and then I've got to execute my shot and let everything happen the way it should, versus sitting there going, oh man, I've got to really start pulling into this, and I've got to start doing this, and I've got to really keep pulling, don't and keep aiming through the shot. And I just feel like if you have to do that in that situation, you end up with a lot of wounded animals. And I've unfortunately I've been there. I've done that. I've hammered that release as hard as I could, trying to get the shot to go off, and tracked an animal for a whole day and never found it. And knowing that, uh, I wounded this animal, and then just to see it a couple days later on my cell cameras, going, oh, oh man, and it's humbling to say the least, but it does make you go back and really focus on. I just got to execute my shot. I just have to execute my shot, and but it's the same way for hunting, for target, for 3D. If you just execute your shot the same way every time, and you get to the point where it's all muscle memory, I don't think that there's a lot of difference in that. Um, Tim Gillingham this year at what was I think it wasn't Minden, um, might have been Benning. He was out there for like 5, 6 hours, or maybe it was shorter. I can't remember, but he was out there a long time after he'd shot his 20 targets for the day, and just shooting, 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 shooting. And one of the competitive archery media guys asked him what's going on, and he said, I'm just something's not right. And I'm he kind of gave this answer like, you don't stop when you do it right. You stop when you can't do it wrong. And that's always been my kind of my philosophy is you don't stop when you get it right. You stop when you just can't do it wrong.
That's kind of the difference in definition between a professional and amateur. Amateurs
Yeah,
practice to get it right. A professional practices until they can't get it wrong.
yeah, and it really it is. You wanna, but I think as archers, we're always looking for a way to be better at our sport because whether you're shooting target, whether you're shooting 3D, field archery, with 2028 coming up and compound the first time being in the Olympics, I can already see people getting excited about that. I see a lot of social media posts. I see, Paige Pierce and Jimmy Lutz and those guys getting really excited about that being in the Olympics for the first time. It's amazing. Um, but that's definitely the people who are out there shooting their bows to get it right. They're getting there, and don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think you always want to try to strive to do better and better. And I always want to strive to do it until I can't do it wrong. And I haven't got there yet, but we're working on it.
Right. Yeah, it's nice when you're out there and you're practicing, you feel that, that good release, that just that surprise release, and
Mm,
then you're out hunting it, and it's the same feel. It's like,
yep.
okay, this is that good surprise release, and you know what? That it's a good shot on the animal, and you're going to get a good shot and kill it quickly and efficiently, and that's what we all want to do. We want it to be as quick as possible.
Yep. When you get that clean break, and whether you watch it, I mean, enter the Boilermaker, and you're like, that's a double lung for sure. That's a heart shot. Or you watch it hit that upper 12, and you called it. You're like upper 12 at 45 yards, and everyone's looking at you like, what? Why aren't you just shooting for shoot the center at 45 yards? And I shoot the unknown, um, just because I like to have a little more. Uh, I like the guessing game. Always have. When back in the old days of shooting IBOs, they were all unknown. You only shot unknown, and then I know the known class came into ASA, and there's nothing. I got nothing against it. I would really enjoy shooting it just to see what my score would be like, but at the same time, there's a certain feeling of satisfaction. You look at that target and you go, that's 32 yards. And you dial in your sight and you let release that arrow and it nails exactly where you were aiming. And you're like, oh, buddy. It just makes you feel like I did that. I got that done. But it also comes with its consequences of being like, yeah, I got to look for my arrow because I was 5 yards different. I was 5 yards short on that particular target, and um, I can't tell you how many of those I've had break clean, feel like I had it, and watch the arrow sail under the target. And I'm like, well, does anybody want to help me find my arrow after the shoot's over?
Yeah, you can only take so much time during the shoot to look for your arrow.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I'm sure you're aware of what happened this earlier this year at Attack event. I mean, the poor guy was back there looking for his arrow. Didn't really, as far as I know, didn't really. There wasn't any like good indication that he was back there looking for his arrow, and then he ended up getting shot in the. I don't want to say. I think it was in the head and neck area, but I'm not 100% sure. Um, it's a safety issue that you really have to take into account when you're shooting those
Right.
shoots. So I definitely, if I am looking for my arrow, and usually when you're shooting ASA, you're shooting with a big, at least a group of four. Well, not always a group of three, but you're never shooting alone, obviously. Leave your bows in front of the target. Leave a person up there to say, "Hey, hold on, we're looking for an arrow." But usually, you're gonna have to come back and look for that arrow afterward because you're just trying to get through your 20 targets, and especially this time of year, nobody's trying to stay out there any longer than they have to because it's.
Right.
And I know in Oklahoma, we joke we're now out of tornado season, and we're into our next natural disaster season, spontaneous combustion.
Yeah.
So you're watching people walk around with. I know our state championships are next weekend, um, and our state director Neil Cooley had talked a lot about the precautions they're taking because it is supposed to be warm, but it's not supposed to be as hot as it possibly could be, especially for the middle of July. But definitely got to stay hydrated out there. Um, but again, nobody's trying to stay out there incredibly long. We're all trying to get our shots in, and especially this time of year, you're trying to get your shots in. And some of us are just trying to get back to the house because we still got to put feeders, corn, uh, cameras, finish final preparation on food plots, checking straps on tree stands for the saddle hunters, going and seeing if there's a tree you really want to go ahead and clear. You want to put the time in. I started saddle hunting last year, and that was it was a game changer for me. It was really interesting to see the difference between because I've hunted in lock-ons and ladder stands my whole even in Colorado. That's how I hunted mule deer. Um, they're kind of dumb in September. I'm not gonna lie. They're all bachelored up. They're all in the same groups, and they all go from one spot to another. And you're just like, they say you can't pattern mule deer, but I beg to differ. I think that you can. In the month of September, you can definitely pattern mule deer. Um, but it definitely made me. It was different, and I enjoy it. But you also have to put in a different. Do I really want to clear that tree, or do I want to be extremely mobile and not have to worry about clearing a tree? Do I want to just be 10 foot off the ground? Um, some places I'm sure you can get away with it, but our deer, if you're 10 foot off the ground, they just look up at you and go, "Yeah, I got you."
Yeah, I like to be a little bit more than 10 feet,
Yeah.
in that 12 to 15 feet. And I remember one time my first deer I shot, I was 20 feet up in the tree because I
Hmm.
had to get that high to get over the brushes to get to the trail where they were going to come down. And I've told this story a few other times, but I was 20 feet up in the tree. I was setting my tree stand up, getting up there, and I hang on the top there, and this couple come through with their kid. They come walking, basically running right underneath me, never looked up and seen me.
Never knew
Of
you were
course, I didn't
there.
move. They didn't know I was there at all. And later they walked down by where my guy I was hunting with, my friend down here, there, and they seen him.
Yep.
But he was a little bit lower. I was probably only, maybe 15 feet up, but I wasn't in my tree stand yet. I was just putting pegs in and climbing up, and they just come by, and I just kind of stayed there and watched them walk by, and never knew I was there.
Yeah, that's crazy. I can't say that hunting public ground in a tree stand it brings a new level of like I might see some weird stuff go on today. You just never
Yeah,
know what you're gonna see. I mean, uh hunting on private ground is totally different and I honestly don't think that one is better than the other. I think they all come with their different challenges for sure. But hunting public ground is definitely I think it has its own unique challenges with you're not the only one out there. So
right,
that's a different set of dynamics. And you also know that you're not the only user group out there. I mean, here in Colorado, you can be up in the mountains hunting elk and have dirt bike riders, ATVers, UTVs. You have hikers, backpackers. You can have forestry move in on you. They're out there doing surveys, trying to figure out where they need to block off the next set of trees to be harvested so that they can mitigate fire risk and stuff. So I've seen a lot of that here in Colorado. I will freely admit I have not hunted public ground in Oklahoma. Like I said, I've got 170 acres that I've got access to, and a couple other spots that are kind of I have access to them, but I have yet to actually go hunt them. I've went and looked at them, put up a camera or two. Haven't had any real good sign of deer being there, but uh, last year for us was acorn plentiful. So you had to hunt the terrain, you had to hunt any sort of funnel that you could find natural terrain and where they wanted to be, because there was so many acorns. It was insane. We're still crunching acorns from last year walking up in the woods.
Yeah,
And with as wet as it's been, I suspect it's probably going to be the same this year.
yeah, yeah. We've had quite a bit of rain here in
Yep.
Nebraska over the last few days. It kind of makes it nice because the grass kind of started taking over in the garden and it pulls out real easy. You just grab it,
Yes.
it pulls right out, roots and all.
Yes, it's not hard. You're not down there grabbing, and hoping that the whole thing comes out and you just get a handful of clipped grass going, I'll be back here as soon as we get rain.
Yeah, but yeah, when you're hunting public property, there are people walking around. At times, that's an advantage because the deer might be bedded down. I had
Yep.
one time some kids went out walking and they chased a deer right to me.
Oh yeah. It's amazing to see how, and I've heard more than one elk hunter here in Colorado talk about, well, I had these people walk in on me and I just left. I'm like, well, but why? They
Yeah,
may have walked down the trail that you were sitting on, because you obviously had good sign. You saw something that made you want to sit on this trail. They walk down that, they might jump up some elk that are maybe walking down that path. And yeah, they may spook them. They may force them off the trail, but they may also, those elk may go off and bed back down. And those people may come back down that trail and push those elk right towards you.
yeah,
There's no telling. I mean, they're not 3D targets. They're live animals.
right.
They've got a mind of their own. They're going to do something weird, and you're going to be sitting there going, "I didn't have that on my bingo card today. I didn't see that happening." My best mule deer that I shot, velvet buck 5 before. I was sitting in a tripod stand, to all things, kind of out in the middle. Had a big cottonwood tree behind me to break me up, and I hadn't seen anything all day. I'd gone that morning. I had dropped my bow out of the tree stand that morning and I got back down after I I was like, well, I got to go make sure my bow is okay. I hadn't seen anything that morning, hadn't seen anything in the afternoon. It was getting on to twilight. And I was like, well, if it's going to happen, it's got to happen now. And I just sat there and said a little prayer. I said, God, if there's a chance, I'd just like to see a deer. I hear a dude fire up a chainsaw on the property across from me. I didn't think anything of it. Well, as soon as he fired up that chainsaw, 4 bucks were laying down in his hayfield. Popped up, started walking towards me. It's like, okay, all right, maybe you let them jump the fence. Maybe you let them come towards me just a little bit. And sure enough, here goes a deer. Here goes another one. They all jump the fence. And I was like, just give me a shot at one of them. I don't care. It doesn't have to be the biggest one. Just let me have a shot at one of them. And 45 yards, that 5 before, he stopped. He put his head down perfectly broadside, and I knew exactly how far he was. I'd ranged that spot. It was 45 yards. I drew my bow back, and the only thing I can say is mule deer are capable of jumping a string at 45 yards. He heard it go off and he whirled, and it went in through his brisket and out past his last rib. And I know a lot of people don't like him, but I have shot rages for a long time. I've never lost an animal I shot with a rage. I know other people have. I know that there's horror stories out there about them, but I've never lost an animal I shot with a rage. I've had some other broadheads that I've used, trying to just try them out. That it didn't go well. One of the animals I lost was a totally different broadhead. It was a fixed blade, and it was a bad shot on my part. It probably would have been fine. It wasn't the broadhead's fault, but I've made poor shots with my rages and still recovered the animal. Um, that blood trail, Ray Charles could have followed that blood trail. I mean, it was 70 yards, and he went right back to where they had been bedded. I think probably the night before in a big clump of cottonwoods, kind of protected by a bunch of just willows, and that's where I found him and picked him up. Got the grip and grin, went out, took him and gutted him, and then uh, I wasn't in the process of my own deer yet, so I took him to a processor here in Montrose called Goods Processing, and had him processed, and it was some of the best deer meat I've ever had because he was living in between two sweet corn fields.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this is gonna be some really good deer. This is gonna be some
Yeah.
sweet, good deer. And he was tender. He's, I venture to say he's a 4-year-old, just going off of body size. But I've also, the judging of deer and on the hoof. I sometimes think we get a little hung up on that. You know, I want to shoot big deer just like everyone else, but I also, like, if my kid draws back on a 120-inch whitetail that looks to be a 3-year-old, I'm not be like, hey, no, 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 stop. We need to let him grow. I'm like, are you gonna shoot him? Let's go.
Yeah. Well, and I tell, my kids and I tell, a lot of new archers, like the first deer that comes by, shoot it.
Yeah.
Now, now for your second one, let's talk about not shooting fawns. Oh, by the
Yeah.
way, let's
No.
let's teach you how to tell when it's a fawn and when it's not. Because when I first started, I had no clue how to tell.
No. And
I It was a deer. I had no idea how to tell it's a fawn or a deer until one of those hunting shows actually made a mistake and actually taught something.
oh
you know
yeah.
and
Yep.
now I know you look at the nose and the head and where the eyes at. If the eyes are only halfway up, it's a fawn. If it's longer, the nose is longer than eyes, the back, the head, it's an adult. It's like, okay, that's an easy way to tell.
Yep.
Don't look at how much slope is in the back and body size and stuff,
Oh
because
yeah. The belly sag and this and that, and I'm always stuck sometimes. I've had last year I didn't shoot a single buck. I really didn't have any bucks come in close enough for me to even have a decent shot at. I had one come in. I was sitting in a ground blind, and the wind was really swirly that day. And in hindsight, knowing what I know now, I should have either not hunted that spot or hunted a different spot in that particular area because that wind just kept making a circle, and it was awful. And he was coming in, and I looked at him. I said, he's got to be a 3-year-old. And my rule currently is I've got to shoot something bigger than I shot the year before. He wasn't bigger than anything I'd shot, so I wasn't planning on shooting him. But I was also, meat in the freezer is never a bad thing. But
right.
we've we've got a large doe problem in Oklahoma. Um, take the first buck I shot on this property. I shot him. I didn't like how the shot looked. Waited a couple hours. Called my buddy, come over with his 4-wheeler and his thermal scope because I figured that deer's still going to be kind of warm. It was early October. I figured that deer's still going to be kind of warm. The body hadn't cooled off just yet. Said bring your thermal scope and we'll find him that way. And he swung that thermal scope around out in my hayfield. And he said, are you planning on taking any does off this property? I said, well, yeah, I was going to take one or two. He said, you may want to rethink that. You may want to take as many as you're legally allowed to take. And I said, let me see. I stopped counting at 50 does sitting out
Oh,
there in my field. I've got 170 acres to hunt, and they were scattered across. And this is a 60-acre field that's just a big, well, I say it's a hay meadow, but it's more of a weed meadow. Great for deer, not so much for cows. And we stopped counting at 50. I said, okay, I'm going to shoot some does. And I think I took 3 does that year plus that buck and found out that 4 whitetail will not get you through the year if that's primarily your meat source.
yeah.
Like, I need to shoot some more of them suckers, but that's a different. We've got a very long archery season, like a lot of the South and um, a lot of the Midwest does. October 1st all the way through January 15th. Um, intermixed in there, you can hunt with a crossbow. You can hunt with a crossbow the entire season. But we got our black powder and our rifle season, just like everyone else, and then we've got the holiday seasons mixed in there too, where you can take 2 more does, and you don't have to use a rifle. Um, my son and I did this last year just because it was such a hard year, and I had a friend willing to take us to his place, and let us shoot some does, but he wanted us to use a rifle because it was. He said, "I want to get." And this is. He said, "I need to get some does cleared off of here, and I need to do it as quickly as possible." I said, "Okay, so I'm not bringing the prime then." He said, "No, you're gonna bring that Winchester." I said, "Well, it's a lighter grain arrow than I'm used to shooting, but I guess it'll work."
Yeah. Well, I shoot a 100 grain broadhead,
Yeah.
and my Ot 6 is 180 grain. So it's actually a
Yep.
little heavier bullet, going way
Yep.
faster.
Oh yeah, they go way faster. Um, but I do like I still prefer my broadheads. I actually this year switched back to 125 grain instead of 100 grain on my rages. I'm shooting some uh, gold tip Pierce LRTs, the 4 millimeter LRTs, and they are smoking accurate, and the penetration is unbelievable on them. But they just didn't wait out, and I've got a very long draw for a 6 foot guy. I'm 6 foot, but my draw is 31 inches. I've got these very long arms and a wide back. Um, so I've got a really long draw. So I don't cut off a lot of my arrow in the first place. So my hunting arrows right now with the 125 grains are weighing 512 grains. I kind of go the other direction. A lot of people go for a lighter arrow, but those people are also shooting, your standard 28 and a half, 29 inch draw length. Most of my friends are shooting 27.5 inch draw length because they're shorter than I am. And I'm sitting here going, I'm 6 foot, but I've got a 31 inch draw length. So I don't have to I don't have to sacrifice weight for speed. Uh I can still add a little weight to it and watch that arrow still travel at 200, and I think those arrows out of that bow are traveling 292 feet a second right now.
Yeah. Now you don't need a high poundage or anything,
No.
or light arrows. And I know, like I was talking about when I setting up that tree stand, 40 feet up in that tree, when I shot the deer, it was about probably 30 yards away. The trail wasn't a long distance away, you know, 20 to 30, I forget now what it was. But I shot when the deer turned around, the arrow was hanging. I think the fletching stopped from going out the backside.
Yeah.
Now I was shooting a 2117 full length arrow, 145 grain Muzzy 4 blade broadhead at 52 pounds.
Yeah.
And this is out of an old, basically compound bow. It wasn't anything fancy or anything fast.
Yep.
And I still almost got a pet because it was heavy. It might have
Oh yeah.
been slow, but it was heavy.
Yep. That's I will always opt for heavy over speed. Um One, in my opinion, it's and I don't think I'm wrong. I don't necessarily think it's that opinion. I think it's some guys can tune a light arrow really easy. I cannot. I have not ever been able to get a light arrow to tune real well out of my bows. And maybe it's just because I'm not as good a bow mechanic as I think I am. Um, but I always opt for heavy over light. But again, I've got that long draw length. I've got and with modern bow equipment, if you're shooting 60, 65 pounds, that's way more than enough to get a pass through. It's not like if you're looking for straight pass throughs, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you were you just they weren't there. And if they were, you had done you were maxed out on poundage. And my first compound bow, because up until I was in my 20s, I didn't have a compound bow. I had shot recurves only. Bear Kodiak Hunters are my favorites. I love them. I still got one. It's a 60-inch AMO. It's a little short for me, but it's at 58 pounds at 28 inches. So with my long draw, it's really higher than that, but I love shooting that bow because it's fun. And where we live in McAllister, there's a ammo plant out there for the military. United States Army has a base out there, and they draw for hunts on there, and it's traditional only. No compounds, no rifles, no nothing. So you can only hunt with a longbow or a recurve. And I'm really hoping to get one of those because there are some very nice deer on that property. I've seen them jump the fence and go to another property that's for sale right now. And if I win the Powerball, there will no, I won't tell anybody, but there will be signs. Um, I have a 2,800 acre property that's heavily wooded and right next to that ammo depot. Oh man, I've looked at that place on Onyx 100 times and went, "Oh, I wish I could own that. It's so nice." Uh, you ever look at a place on, on the doing your e-scouting, which I still laugh. Back in when I first got into archery and archery hunting, e anything. The only e you knew, was Easton. That was it.
Yeah.
Now we knew e-scouting. We're on our phones or on our computer or tablets looking at these, and I mean it's great. I don't have a problem with it. I think that in the advent of some of the technology we have sometimes makes us think we're better than we are. Um, but I like using that technology as good as I know how to. I mean, no I'm no dinosaur, but I'm also no tech genius. I can't do things. My If my iPhone locks up, I've got to hand it to my 16-year-old kid and be like, "Here, can you fix this for me?" Because I can't. I don't know what to do. Um, but you look at different spots. It's you don't. I mean, you don't have permission to hunt. You don't even own the ground. But I like looking at those spots and just identifying. Well, there's a funnel right there. There's a pinch point right there. There's a hard vegetation line right there that I'll bet you if you set up right there or walk to this area, there'll be a couple scrapes and there'll be a really good bedding area just beyond that. And it's just kind of fun to think about. But if you ever get the chance to go on those properties and it looks and all the stuff you thought was there works out in your favor, you're like, I was right. It's just like guessing the right yardage. You're like, holy
Right.
crap, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's that can be an advantage and and then there's some of the apps that you can look at who owns the property.
Hmm.
So it just tells you who owns the property, where it's at. Well, there's also another easier way that you don't have to get an app. If you go out to the county assessor's office
Yeah.
and you know the address, you can look it up and find out who owns it.
Hmm.
And then you can, you got the information, and then you can look and see, okay, now I know who owns it, and when they bought it, uh, even how much they paid for it. But that stuff you don't need to know. We don't care about for hunting. It's like, okay, this property looks good. Here's the boundaries for it, and
Yep.
here's who owns it. So you can go up to it and talk to them and say, hey, is Mister, whoever it is, are they home? And now you're addressing them by name. You don't know them. It could be kind of creepy, but you
It
go up there to
can.
introduce yourself, say, hey, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm looking for a place to archery hunt, specifically makes
Hmm.
archery hunt because, yeah, if I owned a farm and I didn't care if people hunted it and they come up and they want a rifle hunt, no, I don't know you. I don't know how safe you are. But if you want to
Exactly.
archery hunt, I know you're not going to be shooting long range.
Nope.
For most hunting situations, 40 yards is a long shot.
Oh yeah.
20 yards is a long shot for most archers.
Hmm.
Most archers should be shooting 10 yards or less because they don't have the skill to shoot them longer yardage. Because, like before this started, we talked about, practicing at the longer ranges. What range do you practice at? You practice 20 yards. Probably most effective range is trying for a 10-yard shot
Yep.
because you're only going to be whatever your accuracy is at that range you practice at. So let's say um, you're grouping 3-inch groups at 20 yards. If you're off by 5 yards, you don't have a good kill shot.
Nope. Nope. It's a you. There's a guy on Facebook. I think we probably all know him, Scott Evans. He goes by Bow Boy in a lot of different
Yeah.
places. He's down in Georgia, and he said something very interesting about he steps out of his back door and he knows from his back door to his farthest target is like 120 yards. and that's what he typically shoots. And he's like, I don't plan on shooting a deer at 120 yards, but I know if I practice at 120 yards, when I get that 25-yard shot at the biggest buck I've ever seen, I'm going to be confident because I know I can drill at 120 yards. So 25 yards isn't going to be a tough shot for me.
Right.
And through my archery career, I've always found that the more you practice at longer distances, the easier those shorter shots are gonna be for you. Even shooting a recurve, I will step out to 40 yards, and if I can consistently hit a pie plate at 40 yards, I'm like, yes, I'm doing good. So when I do get that 10, 15-yard shot at even a doe, I make a good ethical shot versus a wild flinging, just let her fly and hope everything works out. Um, Again, we were before we started, we were talking. You owe that to the animal. You owe that to the animal to make the cleanest, most ethical shot you can make, because it doesn't make us look good when we have constant stories of, oh, I wounded this animal because I didn't make a good shot. I did this because I didn't make a good shot. And we got enough bad press as it is. We don't need any
Right.
more. We don't need any more. We're always, as hunters, we're always fighting an uphill battle in the public eye. I mean, we amongst ourselves aren't, and amongst people who maybe grew up in this particular fashion, we're not fighting an uphill battle with them so much. But in the public eye, in the social media eye, we're always fighting an uphill battle to tell. We're more on the side of the wildlife we're hunting than any of the other groups that are out there, because I mean, we obviously want them to survive so that we can have them, yes, to harvest, because that's the end game. But it's also, we we want to see them thrive. I mean, you see a group of deer on your place, a place you have to hunt, you almost feel responsible for them in a way, to make sure that they're safe, to make sure that they don't do, and that nobody else gets on there and does something stupid with them. You hate to see them on the side of the road. I don't know about you, but I know every time I see one on the side of the road, my first thought isn't always, well, that's a deer I don't get to that's a deer I don't get to hunt. My first thought is, that's a deer that didn't get to mature out and see what it could be. Um, and it does, it's one of those things. I think we care way more about the animals than PETA does.
Yeah. Well, you look how much money they actually spend on helping animals as opposed to how much us hunters spend, because
Yep.
our hunting tags all go to help wildlife.
Yep.
And then we're using, the meat, a lot of the hunters,
Hmm.
feed to the hungry. So we have excess meat, so we'll donate it or give it to somebody that can use it.
Yep.
So we're doing that. We spend lots of money. And then if there wasn't any hunting, those that like the archery hunt, how much would we really spend on archery equipment, which is taxed to help the wildlife?
Hmm.
How much would we spend on equipment? Would we buy any broadheads, let's say?
No, I mean, you're
No.
you're not going to buy broadheads because there's no reason for them.
Right.
You
And we're
know,
going to buy camel clothes.
not
We're
you're
not
not
going
going
to
to
buy
buy.
camel clothes.
And if you do buy archery equipment, it's going to be a competition style bow with competition arrows. Which, yes, I mean, I guess you would have money still going into the Archery Trade Association, but at the same time, it's not going to go towards conservation. So if you're not, if you don't have hunting, and not only that with the money aspect, but you also have to take into account the biological aspect of overpopulation in these animals is not a fantastic thing. As fast as CWD spreads, as fast as EHD spreads, we have these diseases with these animals that, I mean, you really shouldn't be able to walk up to a 210-inch typical 8-point whitetail and pet it. But when they get that EHD, all of a sudden you can. There's something wrong with that. I mean, they're a prey
Right.
animal. They're not programmed to stand there and let this massive two-legged creature walk up to them like, oh, what a good deer. I mean, they're programmed to the best way I can explain, example I can give is watching deer come into a feeder. It's like watching a gazelle in a Serengeti come to a watering hole. They are not sitting there just happy as can be. They come in as though they're expecting to get killed, and they're jumpy. They're they're not they're not on they're not what's the word? They're on edge, and you
Right.
watch them do it, and you're like, oh man. It's not like watching them walk through the woods with a pair of binos or something, or they shouldn't happen to see you sitting in the truck. They just walk through the woods. They had no idea. But you watch them walk into something like that. They're prey animals. They are on high alert 9 times out of 10. So
Yeah.
to watch the sickness that runs through our deer herds now is, and knowing that there's some things that can be done for that, that our wildlife managers need to kind of take in consideration. But we also know as hunters that that's part of our job too. Is we get those animals, we need to seriously think about, you get the opportunity to shoot one of those animals. I know it's not, no one wants to waste a tag, quote unquote, waste a tag on a deer that's not going to produce, or the meat you may or may not. But this deer is now infectious. It can go infect a ton of other deer, and in baiting states, there's a lot of debate going on in the hunting industry right now about baiting and the efficacy of it, due to them coming together and then having these communicable diseases be spread so much faster than just letting these deer do what deer do. And I tend to, I mean, I live in a baiting state. You can run feeders all year long if you want to. And a lot of people do to keep their deer up. I know one guy, he's a good friend of mine. He runs his feeders all year long and fills them up with protein. He's got 1,800 acres, and he sells good whitetail hunts, 10 a year, and he's archery only. He no gun hunting. The only gun hunting allowed is when they're hunting hogs. That's it. But he sees it in his deer herd, and the minute he sees it, that's usually the deer he's going to take out. Is a deer that's got something going on. I had a deer, a buck a couple years ago, 6 point. It wasn't a big deer, but he came in at the end of the rut with another group of deer, and they were just beating the tar out of him. Well, it was, we had rifle season right there, and someone had shot him, and it was right through the tarsal gland, and he was limping on that back leg, and it was green. You could see that it had gotten infected. And I was like, I have one buck tag left, and I really don't want to use it on you, but if I don't, I'm gonna find your carcass out here somewhere, and that's that's gonna sadden me more than throwing an arrow through him, picking him up. And I mean, I took him to the processor, and we made Italian sausage and snack sticks out of him. He tasted great. We
Yeah.
just didn't use that leg.
Yeah. Yeah. Just don't use that leg. But,
Yeah.
as far as baiting, you have an acorn tree. It's dropping acorns. They're all coming to the acorns. You have an apple tree. They're dropping the apples,
Yep.
and they're all coming to the apples. So what's the difference between coming to acorns that's dropped off a tree, or apples dropped off a tree, or corn that drops out of a feeder?
There's not a lot, but it always seems to be a hot topic debate in a lot of different chat forums and Facebook groups. You kind of see it where they people want to be on one side or the other. And I guess my personal thing is if it's legal in your state, do it. If it's not, then I don't do it. Um, no matter what, I'll always try to be ethical about the way I hunt. I don't want to do something that's against the law, against the ethics of hunting, basically just because even if no one would know, I would know, and that's enough.
Right.
Uh, you gotta, there's, character is what you do when no one's looking, right? So you gotta deal, you gotta play the cards you're dealt. Um, but I mean, I've got feeders. I do know that I run 3 to 4 feeders a year. Uh, some years, like last year, it didn't pay to run a feeder. Acorns were too plentiful. I mean, the little yellow acorns, they were not liking them, but they definitely had those acorns in the ground to eat. Year before, we didn't have hardly any acorns. So it was running that feeder. it might be the only way you were going to see deer was running that feeder,
Yeah.
because they were, if you were hunting funnels and you were hunting scrapes and everything, I mean, you were during the rut, yeah, you're going to see them, but if you were just out there hunting, especially meat hunting, your best bet was a feeder. So, it just depends on the year and what's going on, but it's legal in my state to bait on private ground. So I do it. Um, I can't say it's always produced the best results as far as looking for the big deer, but it always has produced the best results in looking for the biggest dry does. And it does help to sort that population out and get those dry does off of your inventory because of the amount of feed and they can eat and the amount of, I'm sure you've seen it in Nebraska, just uh, a big dry gray doe is a bully and will bully those younger deer, those younger does, those younger mamas off of properties. And you're like, dang. So I had the opportunity last year to shoot this massive doe that she's a bully. I've watched her just pummel these younger does. And I'm like, you need to go. And my rule is if they blow, they go. So um I didn't actually get to fling an arrow through her. She evaded me. She's way smarter than most of the big bucks I've ever seen. So she's got a sixth sense about her. She's got to have eyes in the back of her head. I swear it's probably a genetic mutation. But she blew at me last year without ever turning to look at me. She blew, she stomped, and she took off. And I was the only thing there. There wasn't anything else there. I was like, I don't get it. The closest thing that might have been there was a raccoon. And this is like, this is ridiculous. She never did give me a clear shot. She stood behind this pin oak sitting there that I just couldn't quite see her vitals, and I was sitting in my saddle. I didn't have a good shot at her, and then I kind of tried to ease around the tree and get that shot, and then she stomped her foot and off she went. Like, well, there's that opportunity busted. You
Yeah,
know,
sometimes they're pretty smart.
and I think getting those big nanny does is a sometimes I think you can akin it to shooting a 160, 170 inch buck. One of those older 4 or 5 year old bucks that really has seen, got a little age on him and has seen some stuff. They can be just as hard to kill as those big bucks. So it's I enjoy it, but I hate getting busted. And I've done that a lot in the 4 years that I've been hunting whitetail. I get busted more often than not. I'm still I'm still learning the wind versus all the scent stuff we've got out there and all the other stuff. And then the only thing I can say is my rattling game is on point. I've never rattled and not failed to call up a squirrel.
Call up a squirrel, huh?
If you need to kill a squirrel, by golly, I've got the dialed in. I can rattle and I'll get 4 or 5 squirrels coming in quicker than you can shake a stick at. I have yet to get a buck come into it though. So,
You never know. And I remember one time I took my youngest out with me, and I put him in a tree. We climb up my ladder stand, and then just a step over to the tree I put him in, and I gave him the call. I says, "You use it. If they're coming in, don't say anything, because I figure it's like if they hear it, they're going to do one of three things: ignore it, run away, or come to it.
mhm.
Whether he's doing the call or I'm doing the call, it's still the same results.
Yep, it does.
Ignore it,
It,
come or run away."
it's one of those, and I love to hear. Well, and you hear it a lot in turkey calling and duck calling, especially because they have competitions for it. I've had some really good duck callers in the blind with me. Like they've been to the national championships. And yet when they blow on that call, sometimes them ducks will just flare like nobody's business. And you give a duck call to a 12-year-old kid who really doesn't understand air control, but understands kind of what a duck sounds like. And all of a sudden those ducks that were flared they tip a wing back towards you because that kid's going, wah, 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 and we're going, how the, I got this dude over here. He's won multiple titles as a calling champion. I've got a 12-year-old on a Primo's Pro Mallard, and he's calling him in, and the pro's just got to stand there and look at it and be like, I don't know. They're ducks. I think sometimes giving the call to the person who might have the least experience sounds more like a deer than I do.
I had a perfect example happen to me one time. I'm sitting in my tree stand, and it's on this public property I used to hunt a lot. And they also duck hunt there. So during duck season, they're out there as well. And generally they come in about the same time I am. They're out there
Mm-hmm.
calling. Well, they just because the area we hunt was from here to the river. Well, if they're at the river, the deer aren't going to come next to the river. They're going to come in closer where I'm at. So I never cared if they was there. They calling, whatever. Yeah, the deer just ignore it. They don't care. So I heard at that time it was a doe bleeding. They were looking for a buck, and
Yep.
I just thought it was, a duck hunter just messing around with their duck call. I've done that. No ducks in the sky. I'm just messing with the call, making all kinds of weird
Yeah.
sounds. And so I got on my grunt, and there was like the doe that was bleating, and then the bigger doe, and I went, I just went on terrible calls, and all of a sudden this big doe come running down. I think she hit my pole rope because I'm looking through my stand at this deer. She knew where that sound come from, and she come running over there, and she's looking around for that buck that was there. And then I heard the one going, walking off, and then they just walked off. But
Yep.
yeah, it was nothing like what you think a duck sounds like, and that's why I think a lot of the professional callers, who are they calling to? The judges are other people.
Yeah.
What do
That
they
that
want to
always.
hear?
Yep. It's what our ear wants to hear, and I'm like, if you sit out there and listen to those, if you sit out there and listen to the deer, just don't call. Just sit during the rut. Just sit there and listen to them. They generally don't sound a lot like we do. They sound a lot different. And you listen to rattling. I mean, I don't know that you can really teach someone how to rattle, but we have all the everyone's got a set of rattling horns or a rattle bag, and it's one of those things where you're like, I I've heard deer fight, but I don't think they sound like me with that rattle bag up there. But you never know. You never
Right.
know what's going to work. And certain times a year, that grunt tube is your best friend. Other times a year, you could sound exactly like that monster buck or that young buck that was challenging that monster buck, and it won't work at all. You can sound exactly like the hottest doe on the face of the planet, and that buck is like, "No, nah, I'm not into it." It's just weird. Again, they're animals. They have a thought process of their own, um, and you never know what's going to happen when you're out there. But I would hate to think what it would be like if we weren't out there.
Right. Well,
So,
a certain area, we talked about population. A certain area like that 60 acres will support X amount of deer.
mm-hmm.
You said you stopped counting at 50. 60 acres is not enough for
No,
for for 50 plus deer.
no, not even
That's a thin
close.
amount. Yeah.
I
They're
mean,
either gonna have to they're gonna have to go somewhere else for the food, or thin them out because they're gonna get thinned out one way or another. Either
yeah,
they're gonna get disease and die, or we're going to kill them and eat them.
yep, and I mean, that's what we do. Um, I mean, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Again, in Oklahoma, you're allowed to take, I think it's, I think it's 5 does and 2 bucks a year. There's been some challenge to that as far as turning it into a 1 buck state to kind of get the buck size and age group back up to uh, what some would call a healthy number. Um, I don't know how I feel about that. I like the opportunity to shoot 2 bucks, but I also think that if you shoot 2 bucks that are very small, that's 2 bucks that didn't have a chance to grow. And just because a good example is last year I had 2 deer show up on camera. One of them was a really good sized he was, I mean, just judging him from the pictures I saw on the cell camera, he's, 150, 160. And I had a double drop chine show up at the same time. They were both in the picture at the same time at the corn pile. But I could tell that neither one of them were old deer. Like they were still straight backed. They had no belly sway. Their eyes were still sharp and alert. There was no battle scars. They were younger deer. They've never had to fight yet. So I was like, I kind of like it'd be nice because I mean, how many of us get the opportunity to shoot a double drop tine buck that's going to go 140, 150? I don't know for sure because again, I've only been doing this for the whitetail deal for 4 years, but I know that's the first time I saw one. Um, and I showed the pictures. Of course, you get pictures like that. You show them to all your buddies. Like, look what
Right.
showed up on my camera. And you're like, and we all do the same thing. Like, oh man, that's a nice deer. But we all end up with the same feeling of, but that's just on camera, and you weren't there, and they may never come back. I saw these deer, and then a buddy of mine who lives just down the road, he says, "Yeah, they're both." Because I said I saw these deer. I have two pictures of them, or two sets of pictures of them, and I haven't seen them again. This was like a week later. He says, "Yeah, they're over on my property right now," and he doesn't hunt the property he lives on. He's got a lease down in Seminole that he hunts. Um, I said, "So are you going to try to go after him?" And he's like, "No, no, I'm not." And the neighbor ended up hunting the fence line and shot the double drop tine buck. Um, it's do I lament the fact that the buck is gone? Yes, I do. Do I fault him for shooting it? No, because he's a 24-year-old kid who hasn't shot that many deer to begin with. But could he have let him go and see what he could be this coming year? Yeah, he could have. So, like I say, I'm on the fence about that. Like, do you always got to let him go, or do you sometimes shoot that buck because that's a good buck to shoot? I mean, and I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer to it. I think you got to go with what your ethics speak to and what your end game is. But I do think that if you're really trying to shoot big bucks, you have to take the thought process of if I really want to shoot big deer, I've got to let these deer walk. I've got to let some of these deer walk. I
Right.
can't just keep shooting 120-inch deer and expecting that I'm going to see a 180-inch deer walk by me if I don't let the 120 if the 120s go to grow that big. But at the same time, you haven't killed a lot of deer. It's also hard not to draw that bow
Right.
back and pull that trigger. So I think again, I think it all comes down to your personal ethics and where you're at. But I think we all can agree that uh, even when those smaller bucks walk in, your heart still pounds.
Yeah.
You still sit there, and the beat gets going in your chest. And I think the day that doesn't happen anymore, you probably need to look at why am I doing this. I know for me, I've seen enough. I'm 44. I've hunted most of my life, and even seeing does walk in, I still get the. Well, I was outside shooting this morning. We're here, like I say, we're here in Colorado at a family house, and I was outside shooting, and I looked down in the tracks that I had walked in to go down to my 3D target. There were fresh mule deer tracks from the night before, in my tracks that I'd been in yesterday, and I was like, immediately got the binos out looking, going, are they over in that cornfield? Where are they at? I just want to see them. I just like seeing deer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always nice when you can catch them like that, and they're in the area, and it's just nice to kind of say, okay, where are they at now? They still here, and
Mm-hmm.
lots of times they're not, but most times I think
No,
they're not, but they've moved
well,
on.
you never know. Deer are crazy creatures, and you never know. They might be standing there looking at you, going, "What is that idiot doing?" You put those things to his eyes, and he's looking around like he's looking for something. If deer thought like that.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, they
even
don't they don't think like we do.
even Disney's got us hunters thinking like make deer think like we do. I'm like, no, no, they don't. They don't even see like us.
No.
But
They assess whether it's a threat, yes or no.
yep, and that's
If
it.
it's yes, they run. If it's no, they ignore it.
Hmm. Yeah, but it's still, like I say, I still love seeing any animal walk in front of me. Uh, some of the things you see out there while you're sitting in a tree stand. I watched three raccoons get in one of the biggest raccoon fights I've ever seen in my life last year over a small pile of corn. One of them was sitting there eating the corn. The other one come up and rolled him, and then another one come up and rolled the two that were rolling. And I just had to. At that point, I knew the hunt was over because I was laughing too hard.
Yeah.
Oh my lord! And you could just see the whole woods kind of stop and watch these raccoons fight it out. I mean, even the squirrels were sitting in a tree going, "Well, if they keep fighting, I can go get that corn."
Yeah.
Oh, there it cracks
That's when
me
you
up.
you wish pull your camera out and video it because that's something definitely different.
Yeah, yeah. That's something I haven't gotten into. Do you video your hunts or?
Not a lot. I do create lots of videos for my YouTube channel.
Yep.
I've got like 2,300 videos out there now.
Oh, nice.
So I create, all kinds of stuff, not just hunting videos, but, archery instruction, form, teaching you, do stuff on forms. I might have a project I'm welding and I'm recording the welding project or gardening. I've got several videos out for gardening and freeze drying and, projects around the house. I know one of them we just did not too long ago was the hitch on a trailer, utility trailer that we had,
Very nice.
rusted out. So we created a video of how we replaced it and the mistakes we made while I was doing it. And I it sometimes I'm learning as I'm recording. So I'm making a mistake, and sometimes you get a comment that says, "Oh, well, why are you doing that? That's dumb." It's like, well,
I
I
didn't know.
learned,
Yeah, no,
and
I think that's one of the most authentic ways you can really do it is, you know, don't get me wrong, I like watching hunting shows as much as the next guy, but I will freely admit I get real tired of seeing the big celebrities constantly just killing big deer. It's like it's I get it. That's what they're paid to do. That's what sells. I mean,
right,
obviously, most guys aren't watching it to watch them, walk across a snake infested swamp and not shoot anything. Um, but it is nice to see it when that happens. There's a certain air of authenticity about it that goes, "Oh, I wasn't that. We didn't. Nothing happened today. I made a mistake. I did this."
yeah,
And I know early on in the early days of hunting shows, it was always the just get the good shot, get the grip and grin, make sure that you get the kill shot, and everybody always walked away with a deer or an elk or whatever.
yeah,
Um, in the glory days of like the Primos videos and stuff. But it's nice. Like I like that content of, hey, I did it this way because I didn't know any better, and now I
yeah.
do. I learned something, and I got the opportunity to share it with y'all, and maybe you learned it too. So
Well, and I like that. Well, it's kind of disappointing, but on some of the archers, they're out there doing the videos, and they'll draw back across their chest using their weak muscles, and then they
mhm.
raise it up, or they draw really high up and draw it back to all this movement. And you know what? Ain't a deer gonna stay around while you do all that movement. And then
Now,
where she had is they got a wrist strap on, and they got that fingers just like you do on a rifle, just barely touching it, and the fingers out there and I know they're going to cram it. And all of a sudden, they just take the finger as fast as they can and cram on that trigger and make it fire.
we long time ago, I shot with a group of guys me and my brother-in-law were both bow tech guys, and all these other group of guys, they were Hoyt shooters. And they would always be giving us, this is back in the early days of bow tech. This was in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
And they would give us so much grief because we were speed guys, right? I had heavy arrows, but I had speed, and they were Hoyt guys, and they were, I mean, Hoyt is still Hoyt. The
right.
Concept X, I think is one of the best target bows out there, and the Alpha X. I think it's probably one of the best hunting bows out there. But um, not that I have one. I would love to have one, but I've got a Prime CT5 that I still hunt with from 2019. That is if you got to change your draw length on that one sucks because you got to buy cams and they're about $350 now. And
Yeah.
oh,
Like the
like
first Matthews, you had
yep,
maybe a half inch is all you could vary at most. You
mm-hmm,
bought the cam and your draw length, and
yep,
you could
and
have a little variation, a quarter, an eighth inch up, an eighth inch down. Maybe that's all you had was quarter inch. I don't remember exactly what it was, but
well, they had
you
those
you
little
didn't
draw
go.
stops on there.
Yeah, you could move them a little bit, but that wasn't much.
No, I
And
mean, you had a very little amount of, especially on those first solo cams. Like, I had an Ovation, and I remember I bought it. It was a 29-inch draw length, and I, of course, I called him up and I said, I need to get cams for this bow and la da da. Back then, I think the cam for that bow was, I want to say like 60, $70.
right,
But that was also, what, almost 20 years ago. You
yeah,
know, I mean, 60, $70 for a cam is about $300 for a cam today.
yeah,
Like, oh man. But uh anyways, we shot with this group of guys and we're watching them shoot and they were having a hard one of them was having a hard time working this Carter. I can't remember what it was, but it was a thumb button that he wasn't used to shooting and he just kind of ripped it. Just whack. And my brother-in-law, he goes, "Yep, that's why you a Hoyt shooter. Hammer on yo trigger." And we rolled on the floor laughing for a good 20 minutes. Oh, I was like, you're never gonna live that down, Scott. You will forever be known as the hammer on yo trigger. Oh, it was funny. We had a good time with that one. Of course, Scott eventually got really good at shooting that Carter release and whooped the living dog turds out of all of us. But the first few days he had it, he definitely had some issues and was a little punchy. It was a little punchy.
yeah.
Um,
Well, and I've seen
also,
that too on a lot of the handheld ones. They
yep.
get that knurled knob on there, and they take that thumb, and now instead of cramming it with the finger, they cram out the thumb. The next thing you know, they're taking a thumb and just slamming on that trigger. And
Oh
that's not what you need to do. Um,
no.
Actually, you have a Carter I use, and I put it deep into my hand, and now then I rest see, I got the knurled on off. Those you can't see, but I don't have a knurled knot on it. I took it off
Mhm.
because I don't need it. I put that trigger right into the seam between my thumb and my index finger, and then as I roll it forward, I put my thumb on. I can put a lot of pressure on that and won't make it fire. And then with it cocked, now then, as I do it, if I take and need to force fire it, I just tighten my fist up a little bit and it'll fire. But when you use it with a release, well, actually, I made some little test samples of different color combinations for strings because I make my own strings.
Yeah.
And then as you put this in here and you put this pressure on it and you pull and it starts rocking back, it fires.
Yep.
And you don't need to do any movement. It just
You don't need to
pulling will
move your
make it
thumb at all.
fire. And I have another one that still has the I hit the wrong button on my computer, blanked my screen out. I have I have one that has I got all kinds of stuff coming up here. Um, that has that knob on it, but there's jaws that open up and
Hmm.
clamp around it. I don't really like those kind because I got to force it open, and now then when I fire it, I got to do the same thing. So
Yeah, I
my wife passed me a note. Her and a friend are leaving, going somewhere. It's like, okay, whatever.
yep, I got you. I'm currently shooting. It's a True Fire pivot. It's or rivet, not pivot. It's about $100 release. It's not in the upper end of the releases. It's a thumb button. You can shoot it in a 3 or 4 finger configuration. Um, but I still shoot it like I would a Scott Longhorn Pro. I still back there squeezing my shoulder blades together, working through my back tension, and I don't move my thumb. I just keep pushing that elbow, and as it rocks, it just bam.
Right.
And but I do know that if I get frustrated with the shot, or if I'm like I've been holding for a long time, And I don't know what it is about. It seems to be more affected in the male archer than it is the female archer. They seem to have a much easier time with understanding I just need to let down and start over. Whereas the male archer, oh, I gotta make this shot go, and no, let down. You're gonna make a bad shot. And oh yeah, if I get to that point where I'm screaming at myself, my head's going let down, let down, let down, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna force it through. I find myself going clank, and I watch my arrow sail to the 8 ring, bigger than every. I'm like, oh, should have let down. I'd be shooting a hunter, uh, bow hunter only 5 spot in McAllister with so you can only use a hunting setup. No target stabs, no target sights. Everything's got to be no scopes, no not even a verifier, clarifier, and a peep. It's all got to be hunting. No bigger than a 246 arrow, 12-inch stabilizer, the whole 9 yards. They were even talking about not letting sidebar be allowed, and I was like, whoa, I hunt with a sidebar. It's not a big sidebar, but I do hunt with a sidebar. Um, and I'm sitting there. I pin. I'd held that arrow back for a good 20 seconds, 30 seconds, trying to get the shot to go off, and I watched my pin go from one side of the flipping white to the other, and then it started going from one side of the blue to the other, and I'm like, I need to let down. I really need to let down. And I think I was around 10, 11 or 10 or 11 ends into this shot, and I couldn't make myself let down. Ended up shooting they run it as tens and nines. I ended up shooting a 9, which would be a 4 in standard Louisville scoring.
Yeah.
So I shot a 599 with like 49 X's with 4 millimeter arrows. I was like, and I mean my X count wasn't. I thought my X count with 4 millimeter arrows for that particular was okay, but my that I couldn't let that 599 go because it just irked me that I had not let down versus just hammering a shot through and making it go. And if I'd have just let down, waited 20 seconds, redrew my bow, there's no timer. There's nobody sitting there. There's not a scoring official standing over the stopwatch going, you've got 10 seconds. I could have easily let down a couple of times, but I didn't do it. And it cost me, well, it cost me shooting a 600, but it didn't cost me anything. I still won that week. It's a weekly deal. I won that week. I lost last week, so I lost it by 1x. Shot a 647, and guy that I shoot with in McAllister, Cameron Highfeld, he shot a 648. And the guy that runs the shoot says, "You got beat by 1x. Isn't that crazy?" I said, "Dude, most archery shoots like that are decided by 1x. That's just how it
Right.
is. Like I can't tell you how many Louisville 5 spots I've shot that were decided by 1x, or just you get to inside out scoring and decided by just one arrow that touched the line that shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Which I gotta. How do you feel about that? There's talk about in the NFAA and who else was talking about it? Might just be the NFAA, that if you qualify with 27s in the shoot down, you got to shoot the 27s, because I know a lot of pros, especially when they go to inside out scoring, will switch to those skinnies so that if they do get close to that line, it's not touching that line. Like I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea, but I also there's strategy involved in that, and that's kind of why I like archery, because there's strategy involved in it.
Right. Well, and it's whatever you want to shoot. If it's within the rules, um, you can have half your arrows. You're shooting a 5 spot and you got 5 arrows. You could have three of them, the fat ones, and two of the small ones, if that's what you want to shoot. It doesn't. I don't think it really matters
Oh,
what you're shooting. And if you want to switch, the more you switch, the more
there
chances you
we
have
go.
of something going wrong. Because your setup's different. Your sights might be different and everything else. So I think it's
Oh,
just a matter of
can you hear me, Raleigh?
Yeah, I can hear you. First you went sideways on your screen, then you went to the
Oh,
vertical mode, now horizontal mode, but you're kind of froze. Your video's froze, but I can still hear you.
yeah.
Now I can see you, but
We're in
can't
a
hear you.
rural part of
There you
Colorado as
go.
well, so sound reception's not always great. And
Yeah,
so yeah, I don't like I said I don't have a problem with it. I find that if you've got a strategy that works, run it. Um, I did disagree with the ASA allowing 27s to be used. I thought they should have stuck with 23s being the biggest diameter to be used. But then again, it's not like they called me to ask me what I thought.
right.
Uh, but at the same time, I'm not. I just don't like shooting 27s for 3D. Anyways, I like shooting for paper. 27s and 26s, I'll shoot them for paper all day long. But I don't like shooting for 3D. 23s are as big as I'll shoot for 3D. One, like right now, I'm shooting a Darden Exodus Pro, or not Pro. Exodus is a 2024 model, and I love the bow. It's a great bow. It's got a 7.25 inch brace height. Um, it's like 37 axle to axle. It's a 60-pound bow. It's a great bow, and I love how easy it is to shoot. But that it's just a different bow, I guess, and uh, it doesn't seem to want to fire at longer distance those 27s real well. For me, and that may be my draw length. It may be something in my mechanics, but I've tried it and it just doesn't work real well. Those 23s, I'm shooting Ultra 23 Premier Series, and they fly really really well. Of course, I've been a gold tip guy for a lot of years, and this is my first venture outside of gold tip in 20 years. So I uh, I haven't quite figured out a bunch of arrows that I like other than gold tip. I think kind of some. I think as archers we're falling into two camps. One camp that wants to try everything out, and we'll swap arrows and rests and broadheads and points and releases and sights and bows and everything. And then we fall into another camp where I've shot gold tip arrows for 20 years. And I'm not shooting anything else.
Well, I got you. I've shot Muzzy broadheads since the 70s.
Yeah, yeah,
I've switched from 145 four blade to 103 blade. Uh,
yep, yeah. I mean, but that's about where we stick with a brand that works for us, And so it's a little weird right now. I've had these arrows for about 2 weeks now, and I'll shoot state with them next weekend, and I like them. They fly great. They're super uh, square. They're really good arrows. I just still haven't gotten used to not seeing a gold tip wrapper in my quiver. And when I shoot them, I still feel like I'm cheating on something. I don't know about this. But like I said, they fly phenomenally good. And I think that, I mean, I think they've got their big name guy, Levi Morgan. So, uh, kudos to them for going out and getting him. That takes some. I think that takes some pretty good. I don't know. I don't even know what to call it, but they got Levi on with them. I mean, let's face it. If someone's going to give you some arrows, you're probably going to shoot them.
right.
I mean, if Victory walked up to me and was like, here's a dozen arrows," I'm probably going to try to shoot them at least. I mean, none of us are going to turn down free arrows, especially
No.
this day and age when you walk in those LRTs. I bought them from HL Sports Shop in McAllister, and I paid $300 for a dozen of them. I mean, do they shoot well? Yes. Are they deadly accurate at 115 yards. That's as far as I can go with my sight. I can't go any further. Start getting relief issues with veins bouncing off the bottom of my scope. Um, yeah, I mean, I wore out the center of my bag target that was brand new when I bought those arrows. But $300, man, that's a lot of money for a bow hunter.
Yeah.
You're like, these arrows better last, and if I lose one, I'm gonna be mad because they're like $20 a piece.
Right.
Oh,
And when
and
you hunt with them, you plan on not getting the broadhead back or the arrows. So
exactly, that's what kills me. Is like if you're gonna hunt with his arrow, you also have to understand that the chances of you getting it back aren't like good. Because even if it does blow through the animal, there's a rock, there's a tree, there's who knows what behind it. And if it doesn't blow through the animal, if you hit shoulder and it goes through the front shoulder, as soon as they take off, it's gonna break it off. I mean, you're gonna
right.
break off the arrow one way or another. So you kind of have to look at what we do. I mean, the biggest appeal for me to ever when I was a kid to be an archery hunter versus a gun hunter was it was so expensive to get into gun hunting. I see the money my dad would spend on rifles and ammunition and scopes and like why? I can sit here with this stick and string and this arrow and I can shoot those same arrows for years and never have to really go get more of them if as long as I do everything I'm supposed to do. But at the same time, you shoot an animal with it, you're probably there's a good chance you're not getting that arrow back because it's you're
Yeah.
going to mess it up. I mean, as much as I love rage broadheads, I also think I've only ever recovered two broadheads out of all the animals I shot that I could shoot again. You know, they go through and they bounce off a rib, and now the ferrule's bent. Like, oh
Yeah.
well, I killed the animal. I harvested it, but I've got to put a new broadhead in. And with outserts these days, instead of half outs or outserts, you bend that outsert of that half out as well. Like on a gold tip kinetic, you'll bend that half out. I've got lots of bent half outs that I pulled out of old hunting arrows, and just I've got a couple of bent outserts from those LRTs from those Pierces just from shooting target. Hitting funny or getting pulled out of the target by someone who doesn't. When you go to these shoots, you're not always competing with people who have done it for a long time. You're competing with
Right.
people who this may be their first time, and that's great. But they may not understand how to properly pull the arrow out of a 3D target, and they put a little torque on it, and pick it, a little right hand English, and you get it. And now your outsert's got a bend in it, and that arrow goes whoa, does the barrel roll thing and hits 6 inches to the right or to the left or whatever. So it's just one of those things. But you definitely hate to see $300 for a dozen arrows, but at the same time, they're really accurate and they are
Yeah.
tough. They are very tough. I bounced a couple of them off of trees, uh, and no shatter, no nothing. I've been pretty abusive to them. I've had them for 3 or 4 months now, and I mean I've even here on vacation. I'm trying. You got to get in at least 60, 70 arrows a day just
Yeah.
to stay in shape, so that when you go to show up to the shoot, you're not completely exhausted by target 10 or shooting shooting 5 spot rounds in the middle of summer. That's
Yeah.
a marathon. You shoot those 60 arrows, you get to arrow 60, you're like, that's the arrow I was looking for. And now, uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I used to with my hunting bow, I'd shoot the 300 rounds and at 70 pounds.
oh yeah,
And it's kind of weird. The second half was better scored than the first half.
yeah, yeah. A guy I shoot with a lot. He's an archer, but he's also a photographer. His name's Derek Hurd. Wow, that I couldn't spit that out. He's a really fantastic archer, but he's even a better photographer. Do you know the Shot 3D guys at all? Uh,
Yeah, not real well, but
he does the photography for all their shoots. This year
Yeah.
he did all the photography for their shoots. He's a great camera guy, but he's also a really good archer. And he was shooting these 5 spots with me, and he wouldn't pick up till second half started, till we hit the flop, and then he would pick up. And I'm like, dude, you need to go warm up before you need to go shoot 30, 40 arrows before we take off shooting. He's like, I know. I just forget every time we come to shoot this, and I shoot the 2 warm-ups, and then that's it. I'm like, no, you need to go fling a whole bunch of arrows before you get here. Because he would shoot lights out the second half, but the first half, he gets so frustrated because he's like, what am I doing? I'm like, you're cold. Shit, you're cold.
Yeah.
Some guys can walk in, fling their 10 practice arrows or their 6 practice arrows, be good to go. Other guys need 20, 30 arrows just to get everything moving, everything going. You know, something, especially shooting indoors versus outdoors. You've got light adjustments that you're gonna have to make, and you may have to adjust your sight right to left because of lighting issues. You may even have to adjust it up and down because 20 yards that's marked on this range may not be exactly 20 yards or the 20 yards you've got on your rangefinder. We talk about that a lot at ASAs. Guys who shoot the known, you know, what's the harm in sharing yardage? My rangefinder said it was, 52 yards. Well, yeah, but my rangefinder may not say it's 52 yards. It may say it was 53. It may say it was 50. And you got to sight into what you got, and that's one of those. Sorry, I geek out on competition stuff pretty hard because much as I love to hunt, I love to compete. It's probably the number. I mean, with a bow, I love it. Do I win? Sometimes, more often than not, but I still love to compete.
I think sometimes on some things it's the competition that is enjoyable. As much as the practice is good, it's when you get in competing, that's when you have a lot of your fun. And
Oh yeah,
I know I've done that in another sport I was doing, and I love the practice, but when you get to the competition, that's a whole different ball game, and you're pushing and pushing and you get done with some of those things. I used to compete in roller skating, and
nice.
you would get done with a race, you couldn't stand up.
Yep.
You're done. You put everything in it, and practice. You push really hard, but you don't get that. I can't stand up. Now
No.
your races are, they're 500 meters to 1500 meters, most of your races, and when you practice a couple hours long. There are times when you push really hard, but not like in competition where you just push it so hard you put everything into it, every last second of it till you cross that finish line, and then you get done. Sometimes you can actually stop on one end of it sometimes, so you'll go in there or you go out the floor, and you just basically just collapse and you can't move. and
Yeah.
and, and that's the part that's kind of really, the part that really enjoyable is you get there and you push and push and push and go from there. And same thing when you go to an archery competition, you're really focused on it, and you go in and you're just putting everything into it and focusing on what you need to do and block everything else out.
Yep. That's it's so much fun to sit there and compete. And really, I mean, I just got plugged my phone in here. I had it fully charged, and apparently it doesn't like enough charge. Um, that's coming from Colorado, where I grew up and I'm originally from. Had a really good archery club here, uh, Black Canyon Archers. We had a ball. We set up 3D shoots, and back then we were only IBO. We didn't do ASAs back then. Now they do ASAs. But we set up 3D shoots, and we go to all the other club 3D shoots around here. We go to Vernal, Utah, and you know some of our guys would make it to Redding, California for the R100 and stuff back when it was first kind of getting started out there. A lot of the guys would make it down to Paris, Texas for when they still had the pro am at Paris, and just different things. Um, but we always, it was camaraderie. Like you enjoyed being around that group of guys, and we would tell hunting stories because we all hunted. Um, and you sit around, you have a lot of fun with these guys. But I moved to Oklahoma, and I wasn't really wasn't looking into getting back into competitive archery or anything, and I really didn't have anything to train for. So kind of got a little unhealthy and realized I needed to have something to train for. And like I say, my oldest son, but really my youngest son, he wanted to. We had a church 3D shoot last year, and I loved going to 3D shoots. I just want to shoot it competitively. Just do what we call a kill shot 3D shoot. Like any of the TAC or the 3D shot 3D events. You're not going there to shoot a score ring. You're going there to shoot a kill shot. What's your best kill
Right.
shot? And so that's what we set it up as. But the problem was I found myself shooting for score rings. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm trying to get these score rings, and everyone else is like getting fives, but they've got a better kill shot than me because I set this, antelope up hard quartering away, and I'm sitting here trying to nail that 12. And I was like, oh, and my son, he was like, Dad, that was actually kind of fun. I wish I would have shot in it. I said, yeah, because he just went and watched me shoot. I said, yeah, well, we can get your bow out and we can get you back into shooting, and get you out here with me shooting. If that's what you want to do. I said, I'm pretty fired up about getting back into maybe doing some competitive archery. Does that sound like fun? And he's like, yeah, that'd be. The problem is he had a Darton Ranger 3, which is it's a kid's bow. And the um it didn't fit him anymore. It was a 26-inch max draw length, and he's cramped up, got his arm bent. I'm like, what's going on? You're obviously outgrowing that bow. So I take him in and we just measure him at the bow shop. He's 14 at the time, got a 29-inch draw length. And I'm like, great. That means you're in big boy bows now, buddy. You're not in kid bows. You're in big boy bows.
Right.
And I had a Matthews Halon 7 that was, you could adjust the draw length with modules, and I had 29-inch modules for it. I had 30-inch modules on it for me, which was still a little short, but that's the only modules I could find at the time. So I just ran them, put the 29s on, turned it down as far as it'd go, and that's what he's shooting right now. And he's doing good, but he's got a choice coming up this fall. He's either got to do cross country in high school, or he's going to come shoot competitive archery with me, so that we can kind of help keep his grades up because he needs a little extra push to, little eligibility might help him think that we need to do that schoolwork. So I told him, I said, but the eligibility requirements for cross country will be far less strenuous than mine. But I want him to come shoot with me because it is fun. But we moved there, got get to this point, and my buddy Derek invites me to go to a shot 3D shoot this fall or this spring. And I went and was immediately fired up about shooting again. And JT was super fired up about it. And I just remembered all the times we spent shooting with the club and how much camaraderie and how much that community I had missed in just doing the bow hunting. Um, so started trying to figure out how to start a 3D shoots and stuff in McAllister, and now we're slowly getting a club going. I hope in the next couple of years we'll be able to put on our own ASA 3D shoot down there in McAllister and get on the schedule and get some people excited about being part of a club, but not just that, but like meeting and shooting bows with each other. Because I mean, you're all going to get ready for season, right? Like everyone's going to be shooting their bows
Right.
at their house, getting ready for season. But why not shoot your bow with a bunch of other people, and and you might end up in a competition just sitting there, just at practice. Like let's play knock knock. Let's see if we can knock a knock off your arrow. How does that sound? just playing games and having a good time. I desperately miss that and want that. So that's pretty big reason for me getting back into competitive archery and having a club kind of thing go on. Because I mean, shoot, why not?
Yeah. Well, and I always thought, if you have a true hunter class and like your 3D,
Yep.
the scoring should be -5, 8, 10, 12, whatever they're there. So if
Hmm.
you don't get an 8, you got a -5
Yeah.
because that is a wounded animal, and a wounded animal should not count you positive points. It should
Should
be
not count
negative
you as.
points.
Yep. Yep. I've always thought that the score rings, like if you're gonna do a legit bow hunter class, like a real, we're not shooting for score rings, we're shooting for kill shots. You need to have you almost need to have like a Glendale buck set up, something like that,
Yeah.
with that more realistic kill zone area. Because I mean, we do that a lot. Me and Derek will be out there shooting at Glendale buck, or even just a morel target that's got, the bag target's got the lungs and the heart and the liver on it, and the lungs count as 10, the heart counts as 12, and the liver counts as 8. But anything outside that, and then, well, what if it's quartering away? Well, if it's quartering away, we've got to factor that in. We've got to, if it's a quartering shot, where are we going to shoot? But that's, I mean, and that's what 3D really is about. Is you should be like 3D originally, in my head, was about getting guys to practice hunting. It's a good way to practice on a quote unquote lifelike target. So when they added score rings, I don't necessarily think it ruined it, but I also think that some of us target archers get stuck aiming at those same spots on live animals
Yeah.
sometimes.
And that's not the spot you want to shoot.
No, it's not. You're like but that the 12 ring's not where you want to shoot that animal at. I'm just saying. Have you ever looked at the score rings on either the Mackenzie or the Reinhardt alligator? They're so far from where you'd want to shoot an alligator. It's not even funny, but that's where the score rings are.
Right.
Or a javelina or a Russian boar. The score rings are nowhere near where you want to shoot that animal. Um, they're too far forward. So it makes me laugh when we're out there shooting those, and I think about the fact that as a bow hunter, you're like, that's not where I shoot this animal, but that's where I'm shooting this animal because that's where the score rings are. And yeah, I've done it on deer. Like I hit the 12 ring, but that sucker ran a long ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think they should take the actual scoring rings and make them more like what you would shoot for a real broadside shot. Now,
Yep.
angled shots, you have to go, have to visualize that being actually in the center of the deer and stuff. But,
Mm-hmm.
that's a little bit harder to do on a scoring situation. But
Yep.
there's no reason why you can't have that 12 ring, which would be a heart shot. And then the 10 ring would be, right in there. And then, by the time you get out and eight.
Yep.
Um, so it's just you just got to figure out where they want you to shoot them, not where you could actually shoot the regular, real animal.
Mm.
And I kind of don't pay attention to the rings too much when I'm hunting. I
Yeah.
just know
No.
where I need to put that arrow. And
Yep.
it's weird. I send that Muzzy broadhead through that shoulder blade a lot of times. It goes right through that blade. Now there's that
Mm-hmm.
one spot on that shoulder that it won't penetrate. You need a rifle to go through it. Arrows will not go through it.
Yeah. No.
And is if you stay off that spot, go through that kind of paddle thing. I sent them through there quite a bit, and actually sent them through there, and the arrow still stays inside the deer as they're running. That broadhead's bouncing around
Just
inside.
cutting up.
Yeah, but you just need a tough broadhead. I've Muzzies they advertise are bad to the bone. Well, I've hit bones. I had a thigh bone one time. My string is before I knew any better. String hit the my arm,
Yep.
and it hit that thigh bone and shattered the thigh bone. It still passed through the deer. In fact, to show how tough the Muzzy Broadhead was. And PSE back when I had my store, about 20 years ago, they had their own arrows.
Yep,
They've since stopped them. Those
or
X
the X
Forces,
weaves,
yeah, the
X
X Weave, yeah,
forces.
X Forces. Then they come with an X Weave, and the difference was there was crossways, going vertical and horizontal. Well, the X
Hmm.
Weave was diagonal.
Yeah,
So they kind of roll out a little bit differently. And they actually had an aerospace company make them because it's only make them to their standards. But they've since stopped making them, and they were really good arrows. Good thing I have multiple dozens of my comp pros left.
there you go.
But I was shooting at the range, getting ready for hunting season. I had my Muzzy broadhead, my Muzzy 3 blade, 100 grain on my carbon force arrows at 70 pounds, 20 yards. I missed my broadhead target, hit the concrete block wall. So I go up. Here's a broadhead stuck in a concrete block. Not a long ways. It was stuck in, enough to hold the broadhead.
Enough to
And
hold
the
it there.
insert was cracked, and the shaft cracked back about an inch. So I reached up and I pulled the broadhead out. I'm not sure which one it is because it's in my hunting arrows.
Hmm.
Didn't even hurt the broadhead at all. Nothing. It didn't even bother it. It didn't care that it hit that concrete block. And of course, the insert was broke. I cut the shaft down a couple inches and let my son shoot him because
Yep.
he was like 7 at the time,
Hmm.
and so I didn't even really waste the arrow because now he's shooting it. And there's
Exactly.
another time, those are tough. I had field point, and I used the bullet points on mine and missed and hit the steel door. Those hollow steel commercial doors, maybe a half inch from the edge, and I sent that arrow through that steel door up to the fletching. Didn't hurt the arrow, didn't hurt nothing. Pulled it out,
Yeah,
was just fine.
I
The
remember those arrows being pretty tough. I actually, there's a guy that comes to shoot with us every so often. He's still got some of those that he shoots out of a. He just recently upgraded his bow, but he kept his arrows because he's like, I love these arrows. I don't want to get new arrows. I love these arrows, and I think he's got like 7 or 8 of those left. But
oh
they're very tough arrows.
yeah, when I that and gold tips about the only arrows I sold at my store.
Yep.
Gold tips. My son's shoots. Gold tip had the traditional pattern, looked like a wood
Hmm.
grain arrow, and
Hmm.
that's what he shoots. It's a gold tip in that wood grain pattern. It's carbon arrow because you never want to shoot a wood arrow out of a compound bow.
No, 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 no.
You
Those are
might be
bad.
able to get by with those really, really old ones that had basically just wheels that had really no, real much more speed than a compound, but I
Hmm.
wouldn't risk it shooting them because they just snap. And
I mean, yeah, they're not strong enough, and even those older compounds, would it have enough spine or it'd have enough weight for sure, but would it have enough spine to not just crumple the arrow and then rip the teardrops off on those older? Remember those older bows that had actual cables
right,
and rip the teardrops off of those and end up, that was my main reason I never got a compound as a kid was I was afraid of having one of those blow up on me. So my dad always just got me recurves, and my first compound was a Hoyt Fast Flight, 60-pound bow. I shot the living daylights out of that bow. I shot it so much. Oh, I remember I finally sold that bow to a kid. It was like 2003, no, 2005. I sold it to a kid at an archery shoot. He was 14 and wanted to get into shooting, and his dad was up there shooting and didn't have a lot of money, so I think I sold it to him for like $50. Said, here you go. And it had a older toxonic sight on it and Alpine quiver. Golden, and that's then Golden Key was still in business back then. Had a Golden Key TM Hunter on it, and the old Golden Key equalizer or tranquilizer. You remember the tranquilizer
yeah,
stabilizers? They weren't really a stabilizer. They were just like noise dampening device because it didn't weigh anything. Um, yeah, sold it to him for like $50. Kid was so happy. He was like, I got a bow. I mean, didn't care that the draw length was too long for him. Didn't care that there was so much newer equipment out there. He bought this bow with his own money. He was so excited. It was worth every. I was like, okay, this boy is way more excited than most people are about getting a brand new bow, and he was off to the moon. I'm like, yes.
And that's something good to do with your old equipment that you're not using anymore, and you find somebody like that that really enjoys it, be appreciating what you're giving them. Basically you just for $50, you basically just give it to him almost. But
Yeah,
he put money into it, and it made a little more value to him because he put his hard money into that bow.
yeah, and that's he put something into it, and I mean, I saw him for the next like year, 2 years shooting that bow at the shoots. He loved it. He loved it. I don't know if he still has it. I mean, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So he he might have held on to it as his first bow, but I don't know. I don't know that everyone's quite as sentimental as some others are. I know there's a few things I've held on to. Um, I did up until we moved to Oklahoma. Still had my first Robin Hood. I only did about five of those before I was like, this is expensive. I don't want to do these anymore. Yeah, the first couple you're like, oh man, that was so cool. I Robin Hooded an arrow. I'm getting better. And then you're like, it just cost me $20, bro. It's $10 an arrow.
Yeah, there was a couple times when I was working archer department at Cabela's, and I had this guy come in and wanted a drop weight put on his bow because
Hmm.
he said he can't group. You can't get him to group, so he's thinking it's the rest that's the problem. Well, no, it's not the rest that's the problem. But anyway,
Yeah,
so I put the
no.
drop away on, and those that don't know, the only way to test a drop weight, see if it's working right, adjusted right, is to shoot it, make sure it drops. Because some of them are pulled back with a string, some of them are cocked, and you have to
Hmm.
shoot them. And so I put this drop away rest on there, and I go into our range, and one of the other guys was helping somebody else, and there's somebody in the back, sitting on the bench walking. And I go up there, I shoot the first one, come back, draw back. This is in my bow, even it's right-handed at least, and that's to shoot right-handed. I shot the second one. I stuck the two arrows together. A bow I'd never shot. I stuck two arrows together. So when the guy come in, it's like I couldn't group. It's like I just got a Robin Hood with your bow. I shot two arrows and stuck two of them together.
Yeah.
Um, and there was another time I did that. We had a bow. I think it was a bow tech come in, and for some reason, the other Cabela stores they were having trouble setting it up, and it's just so they were going to recall it, and I set it up for me. I shot it. I shot two arrows, stuck two arrows together, shot it for like three or four of us, and we're all shooting it. One of the guys we put up 1 inch circles, like five of them, and hit four of the five 1 inch circles at 20 yards, and he comes in. It's like, here, I just did this with this bow. If they're having trouble setting it up, maybe it's the technicians. Because when you go to Cabela's, Bass Pro, Shields, Dick's, any of the box stores, um, roll some dice. If you get a six, you got a good tech. You get a one, they don't know the clue what they're doing. You
Yeah.
don't know.
No,
Now,
it's
fortunately, we had a couple of us that knew what was doing in
mhm.
it. Um, we all had our own shops and or worked at shops. And when I was at Bass Pro before that, there was four of us in the archery department, and we probably had 60 plus years experience between the four of us. We all worked at shops before, so we knew what we was doing. And so they recalled this bow, and later on it come back, and I says we had three of them total. I says, can we set the other ones up and see if it's just we got a good one? They says, no, no, we can't do that. We want to set them up and see if there was a problem because we know what
Yep.
it was doing, and so we couldn't even try that. And later it did come back. I don't know what the problem was, but some of the stores couldn't get them to shoot right, and they never really elaborated what their problem was. But
Hmm.
that's where finding a tech that knows what's going on. um, and because I'd had my store, 10 years before that, all the bows, the older bows come in, they're automatically my bows to work on.
Yep.
Well, that's what I worked on for several years, was those older bows. And so the newer ones that come in and, I can work on those as well. But anybody that come in with an old bow, they normally give it to me to work on. And, I had some extra stabilizers for PSE bows. I actually brought them in because once in a while we'd get a bow that needed the string cable, the cable slide
Yep.
bar for it. And I brought in some of those. I had a whole bunch of extra ones, and we'd get once in a while we'd get one, we'd need one because it was, the locking screw, bolt would or nut would come out, it'd
Oh
lose
yeah.
it,
I've
or it'd get bent somehow or something, and or really gumped up, and it was just easier sometimes just put a new one on than it was to try and clean up an old one, and
hmm
because it got gummed up for some reason, and trying to clean them sometimes just wasn't worth it,
and you
and
run into people trying to solve their own issues, cable slides. I've seen people try to lube those up with, I mean, with even WD-40. Like, no, no. I
it gets
watched
on the
one
string and
guy.
wrecks the string.
Oh yeah, I watched one guy put red grease on his cable slide. Swore it helped his bow. I'm going, yeah, until you go out in the dirt and then it just gums up and it's completely worthless and your cable doesn't slide. It just goes. I was like, no, I I will admit for modern bows, for the newer modern bows, I don't miss cable slides so much as cable rollers now. Are they really guards anymore? I guess they are. I'm really happy when I think Matthews was the first one to cut. Was it Matthews or Darton came up with the first roller? I can't
I'm drawing a blank.
I can't
Who it
remember.
was.
I think it was Matthews, but it wouldn't be the first time that Matthews had something on it that Darton actually was the one that invented. Um, that's a whole
Well,
nother that's a whole nother discussion.
Matthews has center shot design riser.
Yep.
You know who has the patent on center shot design risers?
Wasn't it? Isn't it Darton?
No, it's
Or is it
PSE.
PSE? It's PSE,
Yeah,
that's right.
PSE.
Pete
They have
Shipley.
patents on multiple things, and they never enforce their patent on anybody.
I think this is my personal opinion. I think Pete was too nice of a guy a lot of the time. I think he could have done a lot more with that company, um, protected a little bit more. Because PSE went through a spell where no one wanted to shoot him. And I remember I remember when they first came out with the Dream Season bow when the Drurys were shooting
Right,
PSE. I shot that bow, and my first impression of that bow was for this short of an axle to bow, it's super smooth. It feels really good, and it shoots more accurate than the brace height gives it credit for. Like, 'cause it had a
right.
super short brace height. Just a fantastic bow. And I remember that being kind of where PSE started making this massive comeback, and now I mean, uh, gosh, especially talking about competition bows, the Supra. Well, what are some of the other ones? I remember the Supra specifically because I've seen guys just shoot so many clean rounds with the Supra that it's not even funny, and then pick up that same bow, change out maybe the arrows, the rest, and then maybe the sight tape, and go to a 3D shoot and still shoot a clean round on a 3D, and never even change the poundage. Just here we go. So I remember I've shot a few PSEs and I have liked them. In my area, there's not a lot of support for PSE. That's the problem I run in with Darton too. There's not a lot of support for Darton. I've got one shop up in Okmulgee that supports Prime right now. That's an actual Prime dealer. Everybody down there, Matthews, Hoyt, not even Bowtech anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone, the sports shop that's in my town, They sold last year. They sold four Bowtechs total. I was like, oh. They said if they don't sell some this year, they're currently an elite Bowtech Matthews Hoyt dealer. And if they don't sell some elites and some Bowtechs, they're going to be a Matthews Hoyt dealer. And I've got nothing against those bows. I think they're great bows.
Right.
I really do. I've shot Matthews for a lot of years. Started with first Matthews I owned was an Ovation, and then I had a C4, I had a C7 for competition bows. I had um, Z7 Magnum when that first came out. It's one of my favorites hunting bows I've ever shot. I've got that Halon 7, fantastic bow. Shot the Halon X, great bow. Um, Shot a Creed, shot a Helium. I thought they were fantastic. Like I say, nothing to complain about. Um, just wanted to go different direction and ended up shooting this Darton now, and I got a really good deal on my Prime. I bought it in 2020, just after COVID had happened, and I got that. It was a demo bow. It was a shop demo bow. It had maybe 200 arrows through it, and they were discontinuing their Prime. They weren't going to be Prime dealers anymore. I bought that bow for $300. It was like, yeah, I'll take it. It was a 29 and a half inch draw, so it's super short for me. Um, and I didn't really shoot it because I was like, well, it'd be a good bow for the kids or whatnot. And I didn't really know a whole lot about Prime at the time. Didn't realize that in order to change the draw length, I had to order new cams. I kept thinking I could just change the modules out, and there's no changing the modules on it. And I was like, ah. So then I had this bow hanging in my garage for 3, 4 years. And finally, well, my son had my Matthews, and I didn't have a bow to hunt with, so I fired up that Prime and just put a little longer D loop on it, which was fantastic. It was great. It was super accurate, by the way, too. Super accurate with a inch and a half long D loop on it. It was lights out. It slowed that bow down a good 14 foot a second. It's huge D loop, but I could shoot it. And the string wasn't exactly where it needed to be for my peep. And I did have some problems shooting that bow. Um, but I shot it. It still works. It's actually at Pat's Archery in Okmulgee getting cams put on it and getting new roller guard put on it because I had to cannibalize the roller guard for something else, and but they were reasonably priced and doing the work. But I said all that to lead up to pro shops versus big box stores. I understand what you're saying there. I've been into big box stores before where your Sportsman's Warehouses, your Shields, your Cabela's, your Bass Pros, where you there's some very knowledgeable bow techs in there. But a lot of the time you go into those stores, the guys working behind the counter know just the bare minimum to understand what a bow is and how it operates.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want them replacing my limbs because
Right.
I'm not sure that everything's going to go back. You replace the limbs, you're tearing the bow down to scratch and starting over. I'm not sure I want someone at a big box store doing that. And I mean, be wrong. I've bought lots of stuff from those places, but I do try to support my pro shops as much as I can because without the pro shops driving archery, it's really hard to see it continue to be what it is and to grow. I mean, a lot of people get their start in archery at a big box store, but those pro shops is for me has always been where it's at, and it's kind of where your good relationships form. You get a good relationship with a pro shop. You walk in there, you can tell them even if you don't know what it is, you can tell them what you're looking for, and they'll because they deal with you on a regular basis, they'll understand. They'll figure it
Right.
out. Because not everybody knows all the lingo for what's this part on this bow? Well, I don't know. Well, that's the roller guard, or this is that, or this is the shelf, and this is a new shelf extension they put on this bow, and you can back in the old days with overdraws and man, dating myself now.
Well,
Overdraws. I had an
yeah,
overdraw.
Yeah, I had with an overdraw on it too, so he can get more speed out of them.
Oh
And
yeah,
a
you
friend of
can
mine,
get.
he used to shoot 90 pounds so he can get speed out of it.
Yep, 90 pounds. You could get a bow, 80 pounds with an overdraw. Shoot a 28-inch arrow with a 20, it was a 28 or 27-inch arrow with a 29-inch draw, and be like, "Yeah, she's cooking, baby." Like, yeah, but good lord.
Yeah, now the new
And
bows, you don't need to shoot 90. You can shoot 70 and have more speed, more power just
oh
because the
yeah,
cams on them.
oh yeah. I was shot an Elite the other day. It's Exalt LD long draws and Exalt 35 long draw, and it was at 65 pounds, and it's with the same arrow with my hunting arrow. It is. I think the chrono said, if I remember correctly, the chrono said it was just touching 300. It was like 300, 299, 300, 300, 299 out of 4 or 5 arrows. And I was like, that's 65 pounds. My prime's cranked at 70. And
Yeah.
it's just touching into the 290s. 292 was I got 4 arrows consistent at 292. And I mean, don't if you was to tell someone 30 years ago that we'd have archery equipment, regular, not crossbows, but regular archery equipment shooting into the 290s and the 300s, they would probably look at you a little strange.
Well, my 2001 Carrera, which before that I had a Matthews Q2, rated
Ah,
like
yes.
305. I
Uh-huh.
got that, and then when I got my store in 2001, part of going to the dealer school, which you kind of really needed to do if you're going to sell PSE bows,
Yep.
you got to pick on a bow. So I was okay. I don't know which bow to get. So I told him, so I'm shooting the Matthews Q2. Which bow should I have? So I got the 2001 PSE Carrera, which is rated 320 feet per second back in 2001. Now,
Yep.
I don't shoot anywhere near that because I'm not shooting 70 pounds, 30-inch draw length, one knock point, and a
Mm-hmm.
300 and was it 350 or 370 grain arrow. My
Yep.
arrow's a little bit heavier than that. My hunting bows, they're a little over 400 pounds or 400 grains, not pounds, 400 grains for the arrow. Um, PSE come out one time with what they call their hunter shaft. So you got your comp pros as 1000s, and then you have the 3000s and the 5000s. These come in at I think 7000s. They were hunter arrows. So I got some of them in to try them and see what they were. Well, instead of being spined at 300, they were spined at 400. Now, PSCs goes 100 is weakest, 2, 3, and then 4 is the stiffest spine. Well, stiffer spine is the thicker arrow, heavier arrow.
Yep.
So I got those in, discovered it's like, why are they, like 70 grains heavier than my other arrows? Well, come to find out, they were mismarked when they made the 400s, they marked them as 300s. So when I had to replace them, I had to put weight tubes in my hunting arrows so that I could have the same weights and not change my pins. And the difference between shooting a Comp Pro, which is 1000 straightness, I could consistently put my broadheads in the X ring.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm, within, what is that, a 1 inch circle?
Yep.
Um, Now with the 7000 straightness, the hunter shafts, I can keep in the white ring.
Yep.
That's as tight as I can get them. That's a difference in straightness. And, I've since replaced a lot of those hunter shafts with my comp pros.
Oh yeah.
Um, but that's kind of the difference between that's why I want to shoot the straighter shafts because that gives you that tighter group.
Oh
And
yeah.
I had another example, one of my staff shooters, which left-handed, the Quantum is another good target bow. That was a nice
Mm-hmm.
little long one.
Yes.
And he was shooting Beemans, and I think they were 3000 straightness arrows. And he could keep them, well within the white ring, not couldn't consistently keep them in the X ring, but he was in there. And I says, Jim, try my arrows. He's nailing the X ring every time.
Oh yeah. The straightness and the weight tolerance on the competition arrows versus the hunter arrows. I don't think many people really understand. I mean, yeah, I don't think a lot of people like archers understand the difference between that. I mean, Victory's a pretty good example of that because they have the V3, the V2, and V3, V3, V2, V1, I think, and the V1 is their elite series. That's their
Right.
1,000 straightness, half a grain per dozen, right? And then just like Gold Tips got their pros versus their oh well, and it depends. It depends on the model area you're talking about. If you got the hunters, you back in the day it was hunter is the XT hunter, and then you had your pro hunters, and now they've got two. They've got the hunter and something else, and then you've got your pro hunters. The straightness matters a lot.
Right.
Um, I have a set of kinetic hunters, which are 5 millimeter, 204 arrows, and they're the hunter arrows. So I think they're 6,000s, or maybe they're 5,000s. I can't remember. I think they're 5 or 6,000s, and 2 grains per dozen on the weight tolerance. And if you put those up against, I still have a set of older kinetic pros that they don't even make anymore. That are 1,000s and half grain. I can shoot those kinetic hunters at 20 yards and put it all in a 4 inch circle pretty easily. But I'm not clearing, I'm not shooting a 660X with them. That's for dang sure. But you give me those pros and all of a sudden I'm tapping out the X a lot harder than I was. And it's the
Yeah.
same. I mean, you look at you look at any competition arrow that's a good competition arrow. It's going to be in uh, that 1,000s, and a lot of times, and then not only that, but arrow building itself. I don't think enough people really put an emphasis on arrow building as they should. They just kind of slap them together. And maybe, and I might be wrong, but from what I see a lot of people just slap them together. They don't square. They don't cut from both ends. And maybe it's just a nitpicky thing for me. It could be wives' tales. I don't. I was always taught you cut from both ends. You know, take because the end of the either end of the arrow is going to be where your least amount of consistency is going to be. So if I had to cut 3 inches off of an arrow, I would cut an inch and a half and an inch and a half, and cut both ends, and I square them up so that they're nice and true. And then I'm super anal about my fletching jig and how it's set up, and go through and test fit everything and glue and test fit and glue and test fit and glue. And I've spent hours weighing and trying to get arrows where they weighed. Like my Ultra 23s I've got right now, each one of them weighs 406 grains. Now they may weigh 406.1 or 406.6, but they're all within a grain. And this dozen is all within a half a grain. Heaviest is 406.6, and the lightest is 406.1. So I was like, I can live with that. That's pretty good, and they're all very consistent. But yeah, I've gotten. Do you remember Easton Axis arrows when they first came out in the first couple
Yeah.
years? I know Tim Gillingham works for Gold Tip, but I was at a shoot, Big Sky Open in. They used to have it in Grand Junction, Colorado, and it's basically just a field shoot, right? Targets from 20 out to 65 yards or 20 to 70 yards. And the Friday night before that shoot, they did a clay pigeon round. They'd sit clay pigeons out at all the targets and have, the little rabbits all the way up to the bigger clay pigeons out at 70 yards. And it was a team shoot. And I was sitting there and I was going to shoot this field shoot, but I was going to shoot it with these Easton Axis arrows because I couldn't afford to get, at the time, Easton what was it? They're not is the precursors to the X10s now. So the ACEs or the ACCs,
Yeah.
and I couldn't afford those, so I bought some Axis because Gold Tip didn't have anything in the skinny realm that was skinnier than the 246 at the time. They had ultralights, but that was it, and or the hunters. And I wanted something super skinny to deal with wind, so I had these arrows, and man, they were super inconsistent. Like just everywhere you wanted the arrow to go was everywhere it didn't go. and I couldn't figure out why. And Gillingham pulls me over to the side because I was at the time sponsored by Gold Tip, and here I am shooting Easton arrows at a shoot that he's at. It didn't look good. I did get my butt chewed. Um, he goes, let me show you this. So he takes and he flexes that arrow, and he puts it on the table and rolls it, and it's whoop 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 whoop. And he did it like 10 minutes later, and it was still whoop 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 whoop. I'm like, he goes, they have a memory. That carbon has a memory. They've got to figure out they got to figure out their carbon. It's got a memory. I was like, really? And sure enough, you could take every one of those Axis arrows and bend it, and it would whoop. Now the Axis now is obviously a lot better, but back then in those early days, woo, buddy. I remember shooting those things, and I thought I'm gonna kill some deer with this. This year, I'm gonna kill some elk with this, and I couldn't get those things to tune to save my life. I ended up shooting. I ended up buying another dozen pro hunters and hunting with pro hunters. And yeah, I got my butt chewed because I showed up to a tournament wearing a gold tip hat, shooting Easton Axis arrows. It was wasn't one of my finer moments. I was just trying
Yeah,
to be cool like all the other guys and shoot the skinnies. And turned out that probably should have just got some pro hunters and done that. But yeah, live and learn.
yeah. Well, I always thought about the ACCs because that's a carbon arrow with aluminum on the outside of it. Well, the
Yep.
carbon you can flex, generally carbon flex comes back. Well,
Mhm.
aluminum, if you bend it so far, it's not going to come back.
It does not come back.
And now you've encased this carbon arrow, which should always be consistently straight unless you break it. You can class in something, it's encased in something that will bend and stay bent.
Uh
And
huh.
I just never understood why that would work. Um, you
I
were talking about earlier, setting them all up back before carbons. I shoot double X 78s. That's a
Yep.
1.5 thousand straightness. And I'd shoot the 25-12. So it's nice, big fat one. That shot really good out of my bow. So I'm thinking if they all weigh exactly the same, they should leave the bow at the same speed. The same speed, same weight is going to drop the same. So I'm going to have the most consistent. So by buying tips in bulk 100 round bags, so I could go through and I can weigh them all. And what's interesting is that 100 grain runs from 95 to 105.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tolerance on a bag of 100 points. So I
Yep.
go through and I weighed all mine. It was right at that 100 point. And then I weighed all my shafts and wrote on them what the shaft weighed by itself. And then I got the insert and then I weighed them, so now I'm kind of combining them to get this most consistent and, them being fletched and with the knock on them, that give me that weight arrow fletched. And then it's cut to my length. And now I'm weighing all that. And now I'm taking a file and filing the back of the insert off to change the weight. So I got my whole dozen arrows within a half a grain of each other. So top to bottom, there's no more than a half a grain variation between them. And, that's not, too far off from being as close as you can get.
Yeah. No, that's
Um,
good.
Short of, you know, maybe filing off the little bit of the tip, the back of the tip or something, but you're messing those threads, and now that makes it really tough. So you really can't do
Mm-hmm.
that. And I got them all done. And like I said, it takes a long time. I did it once, never did it again
No, it's a pain
because
in the butt.
yeah. And at 20 yards, you're going to see a difference.
Nah, I mean you can't,
No,
but
not really. In hunting situations, you're still shooting for that, that one specific X spot. But in hunting situation at 20 yards or less, if they vary 5 grains, you're not going to notice a difference in the impact point.
no, but at 40 yards you will.
Right, right. So, yeah, when you get that longer distance now, then that makes a difference. And I don't shoot a lot of really long ranges. I'd shoot at the 3D shoots and, unknown yardages. And um, that kind of makes a little bit of difference sometimes, when you shoot them to longer ranges. But when I first started out, I was lucky to bring enough arrows. I wasn't sure I was going to have enough arrows by the time I got done with
Uh-huh.
the first 40 targets.
Like
I'm
I
three
didn't bring enough
targets in. I'm already
arrows.
down 2 arrows.
Oh yeah. I remember my first 3D. I was like, I don't know that I brought a dozen arrows, and I don't know that I brought enough. This is gonna be a long day, isn't it? And my brother-in-law, we both started shooting 3D about the same time, and we were a little concerned that we weren't going to have enough arrows. Now, Chris was a better shot than I was back in those days, and he probably still is now too. He didn't take a 15-year break and shooting competitive archery. He he's been shooting competitive archery for 20 plus years now. Still uses the same Carter thumb button release that he shot 20 years ago. He showed it to me. He left there at Colorado State Championships this weekend, and I really wanted to go shoot it, but we're here to see family, not for me to go shoot a 3D shoot. So
Yeah.
I'm not there. But he showed it
Well,
to me, and it.
my
Yep.
my my Carter is well over 20 years, probably about 22, 23 years old.
Yep.
Um, my Scott release is older than that. I got it from a guy back in the late 90s. There was he was a rep for Scott Archery releases, and I bought it from him. So it was probably, a couple years old. So this is, 30 plus years old.
Hmm. Oh yeah. There's only one release I wish I still had from my old days, and I don't even remember what it was called. It was one of the first true balls, and it was a two finger back tension release, and everybody was afraid around here. Everyone was afraid to shoot it. They didn't want to deal. Like, how would you even let down? I'm like, well, you just put all the weight on the bottom finger and let your top finger out, and that way you don't have to worry about it going click boom. And I shot so consistent with that release. And when I sold my Z7 Magnum, I sold that release with it. And I have not regretted much in my life, but I do regret that one. That release was, I shot that release so good, and I have yet to find a release that I shoot that good. That release was something special. Uh, and because I don't remember what it was, the name of it, the model, I just remember it was True Ball. That's all I remember. Trying to find it, I'm like, oh man, I can't even find it in there. And I may have found it, but it doesn't look the same as the one I had or something, and
Right.
20, you get in your head that your release look different than it actually does, and you can't find the a suitable replacement for it. So um, my kids have all my old hunting released, all my old wrist rockets. Um, they have a plethora of them to choose from oh, Golden Key. I still have a Golden Key answer floating around my archery stuff. Their original anti-punch release, supposed to cure target panic. And I don't know if you remember those. It had a little bar in there. If the trigger moved too fast, the bar would engage, and you couldn't. It would lock the trigger. So then you had to reset. So you had to pull your finger off, put your finger behind the trigger, reset the trigger, and gently squeeze. And you could tune how tight or how loose that bar fit in that slot. And there was a guy. He's currently the president of the Black Canyon Archers here in Montrose. He used to shoot that release all the time because he did have some pretty big target panic for a number of years, and he would shoot each arrow 3 or 4 times before it actually went off. I mean, he would shoot, he would pull that trigger, and it would lock up. He would reset. He would pull the trigger, and it would lock up, and he would reset, and then bam, he'd fire. But it turned him into one of the best archers I've ever known. I mean, he has a very clean break on his shot. It's very clean. It's very crisp. It is surprisingly. He looks like Matthias Fullerton does. I mean, just very clean. It's snap. But it took him a number of years to get past that target panic. And man, I've never been so happy to say I've never had to deal with that than coming back to it now and realizing that if I was dealing with target panic along with trying to get where everything holds steady and true, and I remember how to aim through everything and doing all the same target archery stuff that I did 15 years ago and put target panic in there, I'd probably take my bow by that 33-inch stabilizer and huck it into the South Canadian River.
Well, biggest way to not have target panic is quit pulling the trigger.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because that's going to give you target panic.
Oh
Because
yeah.
and what happens, at least, and what I've seen and everything else, what happens is you're watching the pin, not the target. So
Mm-hmm.
now where's your focus? On the pin. So now you're focusing on the pin. You see the pin go past your target and then come back or around
Back,
in circles.
back. Yep.
And then what you're doing, here's target panic coming. I'm coming up to the target, pull the trigger. Now it comes off the trigger, it says, don't pull the trigger. So you go to pull, and then all of a sudden it moves off.
Yep.
So if you're looking at only where you want the arrow to go, the pin's going to float because you're not paying attention to the pin. You're going to put it over there, let it move how it wants to move, and then you're going to go through your shot process. Now you can think about just your shot process because you're only focusing on, you want to start your process, you're focusing on the target where
The
you want the
target,
arrow to
not your pin.
go and not the pin. So
Yep.
quit looking at the pin, look at your target, and go through your shot process and don't think about when it's going to shoot because as soon as you think about pulling the trigger, what do you have to stop doing? You have to stop aiming because now you're
Yes.
thinking about your
You're
target.
thinking about your trigger, not
And
aiming.
now then you're thinking about moving the finger. When you move the finger, you're not aiming anymore. So where's it going to go? You don't know because all you know is your fingers moving.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are some that can do that very consistently because they've just practiced it so many times
So many times.
that they've got the timing down. Um,
I believe they call that now command release.
right. Yeah, it's pulling the trigger.
Yeah, I always laugh because that's um oh Tim Gillingham, one of them. I mean, he didn't get the hammer for no reason. To watch him shoot a thumb button release, it was poof.
Yeah.
Carter made a release called the hammer specifically for Tim, and
Oh yeah.
oh man, you could watch him and he'd start in New York City, end up in Buffalo on that trigger. It wow! I was like, oh, good lord. There's a number of pro shooters I see still do that there, and they don't no longer call it punching; they call it command release. And I'm like,
Right.
no, no. I was I was actually my friend Derek. He was having a hard time with target with indoor shooting indoor target archery, and he couldn't figure out how he couldn't consistently hit the X, let alone the white on a Louisville 5 spot. And I said, "Well, what's your focus on?" And I go, he says, "Well, I'm just trying to when my pin is settled in that X, I'm trying to make it go off." I said, "Yeah, no." I said, "That's you got to keep aiming, Derek." I said. He says, "Well, how do you do it?" I said, "Well, how I do it is I focus on the target. I focus, then I get my pin in focus, then I focus back on the target." And as soon as my pin comes into focus, I refocus on the target because I know my pin is somewhere around where I'm trying to hit. And I stare at my spot and I keep aiming through the shot. And I can tell you that it works because my pin will not always be in the X. And somehow I end up with my arrow in the X. I said, I sit there and I stare at my spot like it owes me money. And
Yeah.
he goes, and so we were shooting a 5 spot here a couple weeks ago. And he said, that actually works. I'm like, no, I told you to do the wrong thing so I could beat you.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
and one thing I like to do with some to kind of prove, well, mostly to see if I can teach them is I say, okay, now let's test this out because I'll say, okay, use a release strap, quit pulling the trigger. That's your first lesson free. And it's like, huh?
huh?
Some will say, well, how do you know I do that? Well, I've been doing this since, well, 30 years. But I said, okay, take a look, aim at us, put your hand up, put your finger straight out. Like a lot of them try to do that. Lock that finger out as like you're trying to make a diving board and jump off of
Uh-huh.
it. And now focus on that spot. Now that think about your finger, make your finger move. It's like, yeah, I can do it. Okay, switch the other hand. Yeah, I can do it. Lesson's over. I can't teach you.
Yeah, yeah. I the teaching kids versus teaching adults. So when I originally started teaching, doing the archery coaching here in Colorado, I only taught kids, and it was through the Center Shot program that Matt McPherson kind of brought along. and then later on it turned into NASP. But the church we were going to wanted to get kids into archery, and I said that's great. I said if we get these Genesis bows and we do this, we can get these kids. They'll have a decent start in it. And for the most part, it was all we're just gonna shoot fingers because most of these kids didn't have releases, and they didn't. I mean, especially the first couple of years, nobody had their own stuff. As we grew and got bigger, and then I ended up doing it for the city that I lit that here in Montrose, they have a rec district, and I put on classes for them. People would show up with their own equipment. Kids would show up with their own equipment, and a lot of times kids showed up with a wrist strap. I call them wrist rockets. Um, and yeah, here's my finger. Like, okay, so we need to go to the basics, and the clearest way I could get kids to shoot and let it surprise them was I would tell them, I say, I want you to visualize having a pop can between your shoulder blades. And I want you to imagine you're trying to crush that pop can with your shoulder blades. At the same time, I simply want you to lay your finger lazily on that trigger and just keep pulling through the shot. And of course, they inherently go like this.
Yeah.
Like, no, no, no. So then I would just make them pull. I'd say, put your finger, but don't touch the trigger. So you just keep aiming. Just aim. And I would walk up behind them and I would just tap their trigger. They were like, I hit the bullseye. I'm like, yeah, it's because you were just aiming. You weren't thinking about the release. You were just aiming.
I do that too when I'm teaching somebody. And one of the things that I do is I want you to shoot through the second knuckle back. You got where it hits into your hand, that first knuckle back. That's where you want to put the trigger because you
Yeah,
can't really
you
pull
can't.
it. So you want the trigger. I when I do mine, here's my wrist strap. I've got my finger behind that, and I have to
Mm-hmm.
struggle to get it behind there. So now now mine has a little hook on it, so I can just hook up really easy. Um, but now as I rest my hand over there, you notice where my finger is.
Yep.
There's my trigger, clear back here, actually behind the knuckle. Now when it rolls over that, now then if I move my finger a little bit, it's not going to fire it. So now as I pull through, it fires.
Yep. If
And
that.
and that's how you want to fire one of these. Now, you would think that I wouldn't be able to shoot the same with the handheld. The only thing, because I have a kisser button and my nose and a peep, as long as those line up, this one I come back and my hand's over. Now, when this one comes back, I take that knuckle. I can't do it with my headphones on, but there's that little pocket, a little pressure point back there, right behind the
Mm-hmm.
jaw. That's where that knuckle goes. And
Yep.
now it's a consistent, that's where I'm at. And I can shoot either one. I can grab one, I can shoot one, I can switch to the other one. So I could shoot one arrow with this release, grab this one, hook it up, and do the same thing, but my hand turns from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
Now that loop gets twisted because the head doesn't swivel,
Yep.
but I don't care because that's twisted, but it's not going to really change anything because when that
It doesn't.
releases, it releases the same.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter which one you have. The nice thing about this style of release, that the jaw locks around it and just opens up this way with one opening up. I can take this, I can hook on my loop and it hangs off my string. So now
Exactly.
when I have it, I don't know if I can hook it onto here because I normally put it on a loop. So now I can let it hang on the string. And all
Yep.
I do is take between my ring and index finger and put it on or slide down till I catch it on the string. I don't have to look at my release. I can come back and index finger and middle finger. And now I can find my release without even looking at it. And now the advantage of the hook is I can hook it up to it without even looking at it. So I'm not looking at the release. I can find the string, come down, find the loop, and now I can just take my thumb and push it on there. I know it's hooked up. Now, when you have jaws like this that you have to close around it, whether this is another Scott release,
Yep.
or you have like this True Fire that has those jaws. I have to pull the trigger. I have to hook it up, so I can't find it. I have to look at my string to hook up to it. And every time I look away from the deer when I'm getting ready to draw, I find that I'm the deer's looking at me every time I come
Uh-huh.
back.
They can sense it. I don't know how, but they sense it. I agree 110%. I do have a wrist rocket, specifically for hunting with that prime, but I typically hunt with a handheld thumb button, and that's one of the best things about it for me. Is I put my bow on the hanger, and I click that on there. And some people will say, "Well, aren't you worried about hitting the button and it dropping to the ground?" So, yeah, but I've done this enough that I'm not super concerned about it. I've been doing it for so many years that it's just second nature. But I do have a second one with me in case that does happen.
Yeah,
Um, and I when I reach for my bow, it's already as soon as I'm getting my bow, I'm already engaging my release and I'm starting my draw cycle so that I can get back and get on target as fast as I can, get the deer stopped, get the arrow sent, and then follow through, make a good clean kill, and do what needs to be done.
yeah. And my trigger is so hard on there to pull. If you look here, I don't know if you can see very well
Yeah.
how much pressure I'm putting on that to make that fire. That's a lot of pressure I have to put on that trigger to make it fire. Where, ones like these, as you're pulling on them, it don't take as much pressure, but it's still quite a bit on it. I
Yep.
have the hardest spring in here. I put the hardest spring that comes with it. Now my son's Carter, he has a light spring in his. I can't shoot it because as soon as I drop back and put my thumb down there on it, it goes off.
So you're trying to settle in, and the arrow's already gone. You're like, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah,
That
but
is,
that's how
yeah,
he shoots it.
yeah. Mine, that rivet, it's pretty light because it. I mean, it's got the spring that's in there. You can adjust the tension a little bit, but for the most part, it is what it is. Um, I can't bump it and make it go off, but I definitely can see where if you were doing something stupid and you could knock it off there, but you'd have to do something pretty stupid. But it does. It's a hook that goes through and it clamps on there, and I just like it that way. But again, with a wrist rocket, I prefer a hook versus a jaws because jaws you have to look. You can't feel it. That hook, I can feel that with my hand, with my fingers up there. I can feel that loop, and I can still stare at my target. I can get that engaged, and then I can start through my draw cycle. But with jaws, you have to. I haven't been able to do it. Not I have to look at my loop, engage my loop, then come back to my target. And every time I've done that, that animal is all of a sudden looking at me like you did something. That tree moved.
Yeah.
Crap. So no, I completely. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, you just got to get what works for you. Now,
Mhm.
others like those jaw type. It takes a lot more space in your loop. I tie a fairly short loop.
Yep.
I don't want a whole lot of extra space in there. The jaws take a little, you might have to make a little bit longer loop. Um, I burned one end of the loop and then I cut the 4.5 inches and burn the other end. So as I'm starting to tie my loop on, there's almost no room to get started pulling back because it's just one knot straight to the next knot. So you start
Yep.
pulling back, and then once you get them set, on there, then the loop's plenty long enough. I've seen some where they have, like you had to do on that one bow just to get it to fit you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
some of
You
the
got
things that you
this
can
much
do,
string material.
yeah.
You're
So
going.
some of the times what you can do is instead of having to put a bit longer loop on it, is you can actually make your strings and cables a little longer, a little shorter. Will change your draw length.
Yeah.
So, but it also like for every inch you make your string longer, it cuts top peak weight down by 10.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a 70-pound bow, 1 inch longer string, got a 60-pound bow,
Pound bow
but you have
versus a 70 pound bow.
1 inch longer draw length.
I mean, you'll,
And you same thing on cables too. You can change those.
yeah, and it, in theory, you can make it balance out, but I, I have a, I have a couple beliefs about bows that I'm not sure are 100% accurate. I just, something I've always thought. I don't like shooting a bow not at its peak weight. I like shooting a bow at its peak weight. It seems to just perform better for me. I have yet to test that theory though, like really put effort into testing it. Um, the other being that, and this one is I'm currently figuring out that I think I'm probably wrong on this one. Um, but the shoot through riser is less efficient than a standard riser, just due to the fact that it's got more mass. But I mean, the Darton Exodus is a shoot through riser, and I am often find myself wondering why I don't want to shoot through riser for hunting, just because of how stiff the riser is versus a traditional riser. But the sight window obviously is part of it. Um, for me, you get that extra piece over there, and it definitely can mess with your sight window. So it's another piece in the puzzle that if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, here's the other thing that I'm thinking about on the shoot through risers is you have a broadhead. How do
Yep.
you load your arrow? You have to stick it through that shoot through riser, right?
And slice the string.
So if you're putting it from the point to the knock, you have a chance of slicing string. If you're going back the other way, now then you have to take it clear past your bow and then feed it back through, as opposed to just sticking it on the knock on the string and setting it down on your rest.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you take a shot and you miss, and that deer is still there. For some reason, just
Now,
kind of looked around. How are you going to quietly and quickly and with less movement load you another arrow? Because you can grab your arrow, you can do it slowly, you can put it on there, stick it on your rest, and then shoot. As opposed to trying to fiddle around, feeding it back or feeding it through. And if you're feeding it through, you're trying to hurry up to get that second shot. Now you cut your string. Now your bow goes twang, and you're done altogether.
and
Um,
you watch cams fly in the opposite directions.
Yeah. Well, and I had one time that if I'd had to shoot through rest, I wouldn't have been able to get the second deer. I shot two deer within maybe 20 seconds of each other.
Yeah.
One was coming from behind me. I've told the story before. And I shot at it and I watched it run as I'm at full draw on this one deer, I hear one coming from the other direction, coming towards my shooting lane, 20-yard shooting line. This one's like 10 yards away. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm watching it run around, so I get an idea which way it run. I turn back around, I grab my other and I load my arrow and I come to full draw and then this one comes out my shooting lane and I shoot that one. I
Perfect.
couldn't have loaded a shoot through riser
Shoot through
because I
riser
wouldn't
would
have
have
had
been
time to load it.
impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when they originally came out, well, not originally, I guess Hoyt came out with one. Remember I don't remember what that bow was, but I remember it was a competition set up. They came out with a shoot through riser, and like I say, I currently do have a shoot through riser, and I mean it is amazingly stiff, and it's made me question could I use it for hunting, but there's again I've thought about reload time. You get a second shot at another deer or a second shot at the same deer. Boy howdy, if you're using a fixed blade, that's just asking to go slice, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
well, that's the end of that. I may be done for the whole season. I may have to get new axles, everything. I don't know.
New
And then
axles, new limbs,
yeah,
new
I
cams.
mean, at that point you're like, oh, you might have to buy a new bow. Um, but at the that's the other. But I've always shot a bow at its peak weight. I did turn that prime down for a minute, thinking I was going to take it to an ASA shoot and shoot it, and my arrows were too fast because I had some 22 pros, that I had originally cut for a different bow, and I was going to shoot them through this bow, and they were like cooking through there at 70 pounds. They were cooking at like 312, and I was shooting in a
Yeah.
bow hunter class. So, 288 was max. I was like, I don't, I'm a, I, I've already built the arrows, and like a complete dummy, I glued in my pin bushings instead of just pressing them in, or if they fit loose, taking, doing the plastic bag trick or whatever. And so if you wanted to add weight to the tip, to the end, to the tip, or even you had to heat it up with a torch and hope you didn't crack the carbon, pull it out, add your weight, glue it back in. Uh, it was it was a monumental failure as far as arrow building was concerned. But
Yeah.
I just turned the bow down and shot it. And I did the one thing I can say is that you do get a little longer brace height when you turn your bow down. I mean, because you relax those limbs a little bit, you get a
Right.
little longer brace height. So it is a little more forgiving, but just don't feel like the bow shoots as well. And part of that's based off I had a 2003 Black Knight Dually from Bowtech, and at the time it was 352 foot a second. It was a fast bow, and I was a speed guy because I wanted the heaviest arrow I could hunt with as fast as I could get it to go. So I was hunting again 500 grain arrows, trying to get them to do 300 foot a second, and I had turned that bow down to go shoot 3D competitions, and I cracked like two sets of limbs within a week of each other, and they didn't crack latitudinally. They cracked center, right down the center of the limb, and they're solid limb bow back in that and at that time. And God, just I swore I'd never shoot a bow again at anything other than its peak weight, and it just so I guess it's kind of stuck with me. But it's one of those things that probably not true, but it's one of those wives' tales. I'm like, nope, that's what it is.
Well, and I found, I normally shot at 70 pounds, and if I turn it down to 60, I didn't shoot as well.
Yeah.
Wasn't the butt, was me because I draw them back. I'm used to that holding weight, and now it's there. I'm
Mm-hmm.
mushy in my form. I'm not able to lock into my form. The heavier weight forced me to lock in. I can lock into that form where if there's just nothing there because 80% let off, you're not
You're
holding,
not
but
holding a lot.
you know that couple extra pounds makes a difference.
It does,
And for me, it was me that didn't shoot as well at 60 as I did at 70.
and that yeah,
So that was me, and not nothing about the bow. It's just I could tell my form wasn't as good at that lighter weight.
yeah.
And that can play into, okay, the bow doesn't perform as well at that weight. The bow's performing just as well. It's just me not performing at that weight because I'm
Because
used to
it's
the
totally
heavier
different.
weight.
Yeah,
It's
you're
it's too
holding,
light for me.
and I do know. Well, I do think that it's easier to go from shooting lighter weight and especially with dealing with holding weight because if you can like I can draw 60 pounds back very easily. I'm a big guy. 60 pounds isn't that hard, but I draw 70 pounds back just as easily. But I versus going heavy heavy to light, I definitely it's but I shoot my 60-pound bow way more than I shoot my 70-pound bow. When I shoot my 70-pound bow, I'm way more locked in. I'm sitting there, I'm nope, we're there. It's game on. I feel that back wall, especially on that prime because it has limb stops versus string stops. So it doesn't pry on the cables, it hits the limb, and that stop is solid. So you can sit there and pull through that back wall all day long, and it's super solid. But at 70 pounds, man, and like I said, I shoot 60 pounds most of the time because that's the weight on my comp bow. But when I go from 60 to 70, I definitely feel like I'm hooked in. Whereas going from 70 to 60, that first what you're saying, I understand that. Um, that first couple weeks of shooting at 60, I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like
It-
I'm all over the place. I feel like I've got a 5 gallon bucket of water on my stabilizer going, I can't hold it still.
yeah.
There's an old guy here in Montrose. Can't remember his name for the life of me. He's an archer. He's a really good archer. He was an archery coach. Um, God, I can't remember his name now. But he would during his classes he would say movement is correction, and he said, but if your movement is from target face to target face, you may want to consider doing something different.
Yeah.
I'm like, Roger that. I understand that. He would say if your pin is just hovering around the 10 ring or the X ring, then you just keep aiming through it and you stare at your spot. But he said, yeah, if movement is correction, unless your movement is from target face to target face, then we need to do something different.
Yeah.
Roger that. Roger that. I understand what you're saying.
Well, I'm imagine you want to get back to spend time with your family. So we've been on here for a while, and it's been really great talking with you.
Oh yeah,
And
for sure. I've
yeah,
enjoyed it.
yeah. Well, sometimes we just keep talking. It's like I don't realize how long we've been doing this. So
And it's like I say, it's different when you're talking to somebody who when you're talking about draw links and brace heights and all when the other person understands what you're talking about, it's easy to talk about it for a couple hours as opposed to talking to somebody who looks at you like you're an alien. You're like, yeah, brace heights and draw links and this stabilizer works better than this. And I found out that if I shot a 30 inch versus a 33-inch stabilizer in certain situations, and they're like, okay, you are getting way too geeky on this, man. I just wanted to know if you like archery or not.
yeah, there is a difference talking to somebody who don't really shoot much on a bow. So
You're like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to overrun you with information. Yeah.
yeah, well, I can kind of get that way too. I like talking about that and some of the things, that I've learned over the many
Yep.
years of shooting a bow. Because, like I said earlier, I started in the 60s and when there was recurves longbows and wood arrows, aluminum arrows, and carbon or fiberglass arrows. And that was
Fiberglass.
it. Yeah.
Oh man, the fiberglass arrows.
Well, I use those for bow fishing. So,
Yep.
uh,
Well,
eh,
and people still use them because they're I mean they're most durable arrow you're going to find for that sort of stuff. But I remember seeing people trying to shoot those as like a hunting arrow, and I'm like, it just goes like this. I mean, we all would rather take a slow kill than a fast miss, but that's like a slow miss.
but you need that weight for fishing with
Yep.
bow fishing when the
Bow
fish is
fishing
underwater. You need that
to
mass to penetrate through the water.
get
You know,
through the water.
the carbon arrows now would just hit it and kind of bounce off and float.
Oh, and it's funny when you see people do that though. They're like, "Oh, I just take this," and then it goes, or if it goes into the water, it just like as soon as I mean, it's, before the fletchings even get in the water, the arrow's like dead. It just goes
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that didn't do what I thought it was going to do." I'm like, "No, in this particular instant, weight matters."
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a whole other topic of conversation, bow fishing. Oh my lord,
Yeah, we could have a whole podcast just on bow fishing.
that bow fishing is a lot of fun. Took me forever to figure out how to aim. Like
Yeah.
how to I'm like, I don't understand how I even hit the fish. And I shot over so many fish when I first
Yeah.
started bow fishing. I shot over probably 200 fish before I figured out, before I really it clicked in my head, like this refraction, and you have to account for that. And I'm like, oh, oh, yeah,
Yeah. Well, for those that, they're real quick, take a clear glass, put water in it, and put a knife or anything in there and see how much the view of it, looking at the side, how far it jumps down.
yep. I mean, like,
So that'd give you an idea what's going on. But anyway, well, we're gonna let you go so you can get back with your family. And
yeah, it was
in
good talking.
closing out, it's like, what would you kind of like to tell our audience?
Uh, it's never too early to get out there and start shooting your bow. Um, there's no reason you got to start in July. If you shoot your bow, shoot 12 arrows a day all year long. You'll be a better shot come season and be a stronger shot. But if you got anybody who's interested in getting into the sport, do whatever you can to help them get into it because it's just as rewarding to see someone new get into it and see that fire and them really enjoy something that you really enjoy. Uh, I think that is just as rewarding as any X count or big deer that you're going to shoot this year. That's a lifelong obsession. If you get them started, that they'll always enjoy. Uh, I've had a lot of bad days at work, but I've never had a bad day with my bow.
Yeah, lot of fun.
Yep.
Bill, I'd like to thank everybody for listening and watching this long. We've had a good conversation here and kind of run a little bit longer than we normally do, but hey, that's what happens sometimes. If you want to listen to it, remember you can go out to Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts at, as well as audible.com is another good place to go. If once you get listen to that, you'll get notified when a new one comes out. It just automatically adds it to it. If you want to watch this podcast, you can go out to the YouTube channel. Learn to fix it yourself, or you can look for Roy Canterbury. Either one will get you the same channel. But probably, like I said early at the beginning of this, the best place to go is join the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group because there we have all kinds of information. You have trouble with your form, take a video on your phone, upload it to the group, and we'll take a look at it and give you some pointers. If you have a problem with your bow setup or anything, just take some pictures and videos and send it to the group, and we'll take a look at it. And that's kind of what we do. Anytime we can get some information, it'd be good to have some place to go get information that's not trying to sell you something because we don't sell stuff in a group. So we're not going to say, hey, buy this from me and that's just kind of what we do is help you out. Any information we can help you with, we'll be glad to. Get a hold of me if you have a question. If I can't answer it, well, I'll find somebody that can, and somebody in the group will have an answer. They probably had that same problem. So, thanks, Russell, for being on,
Yep. Thank
and
you.
I'm sure we'll connect up later again and let us know how things are going, and let's see you from there. And I'll put some links to some of the stuff we talked about in the description, make it a little easier for you to find them. But that's kind of it for this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. My name is Rory Canterbury, and I've been your host today on Archery Talk 101, and we'll catch you later.